Chapter 926. Lu Tianhao was very sensitive. He raised his head and stared at her face, trying to find clues from her face. Wu Shuyi smiled and rubbed his head. What can I hide from you? I'm just a little tired. Are you feeling unwell today? I'm fine, Mom. Since you're not feeling well, you should go home and rest. There are nurses taking care of me in the hospital. You don't have to worry. Okay. She caressed her son's cheek. Her son and her husband looked alike. Looking at him was like looking at her husband when he was young. Her heart, which was numb from the pain, twitched again. At night. Who are you? What's your purpose for letting me see that? Ji Yuqi came out of the bathroom and saw a message on her disposable SIM card. It was from Wu Shuyi. She smiled, picked up the phone and replied, I'm someone close to you. I just feel sorry for you, so I let you find out the truth. I don't believe you're so kind. Tell me what you're trying to do. Ji Yuqi did not follow her train of thought. Instead, she changed the topic. Aren't you curious about the little girl's background? The person on the other side of the phone was silent for a long time. It was so long that Ji Yuqi almost fell asleep. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a message and woke her up. That child. Is she really his illegitimate daughter? Seeing the message, Ji Yuqi sighed. Liang Yu took Wang Yingying's hair and compared her DNA with Lu Tianhao's. The results showed that they were close relatives and that they had the same father. She guessed that Lu Jianfeng brought Wang Yingying to the hospital to match her bone marrow with Lu Tianhao's. Unfortunately, the match was not successful. That was why Lu Jianfeng chose to trick Ahan. Ji Yuqi's fingers slid and replied slowly. Yes, he had an affair behind your back for 10 years. 10 years. 10 years was enough for a person to fall in love with another person. It was also enough for a person to age. Wu Shuyi's love for Lu Jianfeng and her child was condensed in each of her white hairs. However, the truth was always so cruel. Even if you spent your whole life, you could not warm a man's heart. Ji Yuqi could imagine her despair at this moment. It was just like how she felt when she fell off the cliff in her previous life. She was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. However, only by crossing that hurdle could she be reborn. So Wu Shuyi, do your best. Your child is still waiting for you. The text message did not ring for a long time. Ji Yuqi lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. She thought for a while and sent another text to Wu Shuyi. You've given him more than 20 years of your youth. It's time for you to make plans for yourself and your child. A mother is strong because of her child. I believe you can stand up again. Wu Shuyi stared blankly at the ceiling. Her eyes were dry and painful, and she could no longer shed tears. She thought about many things. She thought about her past, about her love that was like a moth darting into a flame, about her husband's betrayal, and about her child's future. That mysterious person was right. She had to be strong. Even if her heart was riddled with holes, she had to be strong because Lil Hao still needed her protection. She did not sleep the entire night. She looked even more haggard in the mirror. Even the crow's feet at the corners of her eyes seemed to have deepened. She sighed and put on some light makeup to cover the dark circles under her eyes and the pimples that suddenly appeared on her face. Then she opened her wardrobe and found a long colorful dress that she had not worn in a long time. Finally, she tied up her long hair. At last, she did not look so lifeless. Lu Jianfeng came back. Wu Shuyi's gaze slowly slid across his face and finally landed on him. He had changed his clothes. The clothes he was wearing now were not the ones she bought for him. It seemed that he had stayed over at that woman's place last night. He came home wearing different clothes. This kind of thing had happened before, but she trusted him too much and never suspected it. The corner of her lips stiffened. She lowered her head and said softly, You're back. Have you had breakfast? I've eaten. Last night, you said that you had something to discuss with me. What is it? Lu Jianfeng took off his coat and casually hung it on the hanger. Her nails dug into her palms. Yesterday, she was too agitated and wanted to talk to him about the divorce. However, after a night of consideration, she changed her mind. She slowly raised her head and looked at him with a calm gaze. She said indifferently, I want to open a flower shop. What do you think? Open a flower shop? Lu Jianfeng sat on the sofa and tapped his fingers on the armrest. His brows were slightly furrowed. Why did you suddenly have this idea? Wu Shuyi sat across from him and poured a cup of tea in front of him. She said indifferently, Lil Hao's health is getting better and will recover soon. I will also have more free time. It's not a good idea to do nothing at home every day. So, I want to open a flower shop. It's not important whether I make money or not. I just want to have something to do. Lu Jianfeng's brows furrowed even tighter. If news of you opening a flower shop gets out, where will my face go? If you feel bored, you can go shopping with the ladies in the courtyard and do some beauty treatments. Isn't that good? Beauty treatments? Heh. When she was 20 years old, he wouldn't even look at her. Now that she was in her 40s, even if she dressed herself up like a fairy, he wouldn't care. Wu Shuyi didn't want to waste time on those boring things. She smiled slightly. When we got married, you said that you would respect my opinion. Right now, I only have one idea, and that is to open a flower shop. Can't you respect my opinion for once? I don't interact with the ladies of the officials. They don't know me, so you don't have to worry about me embarrassing you in front of your subordinates. She rarely spoke to him in such a tone. Lu Jianfeng suddenly felt that he didn't know her. He thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, If you insist on opening a flower shop, then I won't stop you. You have to take care of your family and Lil Hao. Don't neglect them because of work. She was still smiling. I won't. After all, I'm not Mayor Lu. I'm not that busy. Lu Jianfeng was stung by her words and felt a little uncomfortable. He said with a cold face, I'm busy with work. I thought you would understand. I understand very well. She stood up and looked at him condescendingly. She said lightly, I'm going to the hospital to accompany Lil Hao. If you're free, you should go and see him. He asked about you yesterday. She felt that she owed her only son. Lu Jianfeng stood up as well. I'll go with you. Lu Tianhao was very happy to see his parents appear at the same time. Wu Shuyi saw the bright smile on his face and felt sad. She secretly made up her mind that no matter what happened between her and Lu Jianfeng, she would protect her son. Cousin-in-law, you're all here. Chen Tingfang walked into the ward with fruits and supplements in her hands. Lu Jianfeng saw her, and a warm smile appeared in his deep eyes. Wu Shuyi felt as if she had swallowed a fly. She was not a fool. Her husband's lover looked so much like Chen Tingfang. Of course, she could guess the reason. Since she met her husband in university, she had never seen him in a relationship with another girl. After he started working, he was even more busy with work and had never been involved in any scandals. She thought that he was ambitious and would not talk about relationships. In the end, she did not expect that he already had someone in his heart. That person was his biological cousin. Taboo incest. Such a relationship was disgusting. Wu Shuyi pressed her right hand on her stomach and forced a smile. Tingfang is here. After Chen Tingfang greeted Lu Jianfeng and his wife, her eyes fell on Lu Tianhao. She smiled and said, Little Hao, you look so good today. Are you too happy to see Mom, Dad, and Auntie? Yes, Auntie. The game console you gave me is so fun. What good things did you bring for me today? You little brat, you really don't hold back. But fortunately, I came prepared. Dang dang dang. Look at what this is. It's the latest iPhone. There are many fun games downloaded in it. I'm so touched. Auntie, you are so good to me. Seeing that his son was getting along well with Chen Tingfang, Lu Jianfeng's smile deepened. He patted his son's shoulder, indicating that he should not be too naughty. Wu Shuyi felt even more uncomfortable. She took the fruit plate and said that she was going to wash the fruits. She hurriedly left the strange scene. In the following days, Wu Shuyi's attitude towards Chen Tingfang slowly changed. She was not as intimate as before, only polite and distant. However, no one except herself noticed. With her efforts, the flower shop opened for business. She recruited 2 young girls to manage the flower shop, and she became the boss behind the scenes. With the flower shop on the right track, she gradually focused all her attention on her career and her son. As for her husband, he was just a decoration. She did not care what he did, as long as he did not make a scene in front of her. Ji Yuqi secretly observed for a long time. Seeing that Wu Shuyi had walked out of the pain of her husband's affair, She decided to start the second step of her plan. She laid on Shenja's chest, fiddling with a large stack of photos in her hand. She planned to pick out a few to send to Lu Jianfeng's mistress, Wang Minghan. Shenja put the report in his hand on the coffee table, pinched her nose and chuckled. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Just send the photos to the TV station, and let Lu Jianfeng lose face in front of the whole city. Isn't that good? Ji Yuqi pretended to be mature and sighed. Although I hate scumbags and mistresses and really want to teach them a lesson, the first wife is innocent after all. Before Wu Shuyi is mentally prepared, if we rashly spread the news of Lu Jianfeng's infidelity to the whole city, what if she can't figure it out and walks into a dead end? Although I've waited for a long time and wasted a lot of time, I think it's worth it. At the very least, there was one less pitiful wife in the world who was heartbroken because of her husband's affair. My Chi-Chi, you're so kind. Shenja bent down and kissed her hair. She found it funny. I'm not kind, not at all, because I'm about to deal with scumbags and mistresses. Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 927. Although the child of the mistress was innocent, this would not stop her from taking action. However, she would do her best to protect the child from being attacked by the media. You don't need to be kind when dealing with bad people. Shenja stroked her hair comfortingly. He loved her like this, daring to love and hate, decisive and brave. Ji Yuqi put aside the photos she had chosen, and reached out to wrap her arms around his neck. She kissed him on the lips and smiled sweetly. In this world, only you can accept me unconditionally. Of course, I'm your husband. He hugged her tightly and deepened the kiss. After a long while, she lay in his arms and said softly, Aja, the 2-month deadline is almost up. How are your arrangements going? Do you have a chance of winning against Xinyu? Previously, Shenja had mobilized the board of directors to set off a wave of opposition against Xinyu. In the end, under Shen Jianhao's mediation, the board of directors proposed a 2-month deadline. Whoever did better between Shenja and Xinyu would become the new CEO of the Shen Group. I'll let you see Xinyu suffer a crushing defeat. He stared into her eyes, his tone full of confidence. She smiled. I'm looking forward to it. While Ji Yuqi was busy taking revenge on Lu Jianfeng, Shenja was not idle either. The game between him and Xinyu had reached its peak. The board meeting on Monday would decide which of the two of them would take on the big responsibility. In the G Group's meeting room, there was a fierce debate going on. The side supporting Xinyu took out the results he had done in the past few months and tried their best to encourage the board of directors to support him. Shenja was expressionless as he stared coldly at the actions of Xinyu and the others. When Shen Jianhao suggested that everyone vote, Shenja suddenly turned his head and nodded at his assistant. The assistant hurriedly stepped forward and distributed the documents in his arms to the directors one by one. When everyone was looking at the documents curiously, Shenja placed his hands on the conference table. His handsome face and deep cold eyes gave people a sense of oppression. His voice was slightly deep, like a sharp sword cutting through ice, cold and lonely. Everyone, what you are holding in your hands is the financial statement for the last quarter. Shen Jianhao frowned unhappily. Haven't we already seen the last quarter's financial report? Shenja looked up at him. His gaze was calm and emotionless. This is the real financial statement. Shen Jianhao's expression changed. What do you mean? The corners of Shenja's lips curled up slightly, and his gaze was calm. It literally means that the first report you saw was embellished by someone and increased the profit by 10%. In addition, Hengyang Technology, which Xinyu had proposed to acquire, was still in a state of loss. It was not the 3 million monthly profit that was reported in the report. Now what you are holding in your hands is the real financial statement. Everyone burst into an uproar, as if a pot had exploded. One by one, they buried their heads and carefully flipped through the report. Qinyu's face was ashen. He suddenly slammed the table and angrily said, Chenja, don't talk nonsense. The report I sent to everyone just now is the real account. This one is fake. Since we each have our own version of the story, and the directors can't tell the truth, I will invite a witness to prove what I said. It was a casual sentence, as if they were discussing what to eat for breakfast. However, His deep and cold eyes revealed an unquestionable toughness. After he finished speaking, the door of the conference room was pushed open. 3 men in black suits carrying briefcases walked in. The one walking in front was a foreigner with a cold face. Shunja stood up and politely shook hands with him. Then he introduced him to everyone. This is Mr. Mike, the chief auditor of PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has audited the accounts of the top 10 companies in the world and has never made any mistakes. Today, I invite Mr. Mike here. He will tell us which financial statement is the real one. After listening to Shunja's words, Shinyu's face turned ugly. He knew Mike. Mike was known as the Sherlock Holmes of the auditing industry. As long as there were false accounts or omissions, as long as they passed through his hands, they would be exposed. In addition, Mike had another nickname, the Iron Mask Killer. It means that no one can buy him. He only works for the boss who hired him. Shinyu had a premonition that he had fallen into Shunja's hands this time. The audit work would last for 3 days. Therefore, the board meeting was suspended and postponed until the provincial results came out. At the end of the meeting, everyone left with a belly full of thoughts. Shinyu was full of hostility. He blocked Shunja at the door of the conference room. His fierce and cold eyes were filled with hatred. He wanted to tear Shunja apart. Shunja, your methods are really brilliant. Shunja's expression was indifferent. He pushed Shinyu's hand away from his collar. Then, he used his finger to lightly flick the place where Shinyu had grabbed him. He said indifferently, same here. To be able to think of falsifying the accounts, your methods are also very superb. Moreover, it is very despicable. Shinyu's face froze. He had the urge to pounce on him and wring his neck. He gritted his teeth and said, my assistant is one of your people. When did you arrange for him to be by my side? That's right. This was the thing that made him most angry. He was actually betrayed by the people around him. Only his assistant and the financial director knew that he had falsified the accounts. The financial director was his biological uncle. Of course, it was impossible for him to betray him. Then, the only person who could be judged was his assistant. The corner of Shunja's mouth curled up slightly. His tone was light, as if he was disdainful. When you were just promoted to CEO, I knew your every move in the Shin group like the back of my hand. Shunja. Shinyu was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. This feeling of being despised and completely suppressed was simply terrible. Excuse me, I'm very busy. Shunja's expression was cold as he threw out these words. He passed by him and directly left his sight. Shinyu was so angry that he punched the wall. His malicious eyes stared at the man who had disappeared into the distance. In his heart, he had already torn him into pieces. Shinja specially arranged an office for Mike and his 2 assistants. He also gave the 3 of them special privileges. As long as the 3 of them needed relevant information, the company's employees had to cooperate. The 3 of them ate and stayed in a 5-star hotel. Shinja sent several bodyguards to secretly protect their safety in case Shinyu became desperate and threatened their personal safety. During the 3-day audit, all the company's executives were tense, especially Shinyu and Shin Jianhao. They anxiously discussed countermeasures. In the end, they decided to start with the directors of the board of directors. As long as they could get the majority of people to stand on their side, even if Shinja found out about the falsification of the accounts, it would be useless. Shinyu racked his brains and used all kinds of methods to coerce the directors. In the end, there were finally 2 people who had originally remained neutral who agreed to support him. Finally, the day of the final decision had arrived. In the huge conference room, everyone present was affectionate and serious as they focused on the direction of Mike. Mike took the audit results from his assistant and announced in English. After the review, the financial statements of the Shin Group have a phenomenon of false reporting of profits. Mr. Shinyu advocated the acquisition of Hengyang Technology, which had a total loss of 1.27 million last quarter. In addition, the financial director misappropriated public funds amounting to 12 million. Everyone was shocked. Shinja had mentioned the false reporting of profits in the last meeting, so they were not very surprised. They were surprised that the financial director, Tao Mingliang, had misappropriated public funds amounting to 10 million. Shin Jianhao and Shinyu were also very surprised. Tao Mingliang was Shen Jianhao's brother-in-law and Shen Yu's biological uncle. How could he do such a thing? Everyone present could not believe it. They either whispered to each other or shook their heads and sighed. Shen Jianhao and his son were shocked and angry at the same time. Only Shen Zhi remained unmoved. His expression was as usual. His dark eyes were like a deep pool that had been silent for thousands of years. No matter if it was a breeze or a storm, it would not cause the slightest ripple. Shen Zhi's cold eyes slowly looked around. His cold voice was slightly low. Now the matter is very clear. I ask everyone to make the wisest judgment and start voting. They implemented a simple secret ballot. The secretary collected all the votes. The assistant was responsible for counting the votes. The results showed that Shen Yu and Shen Zhi were tied. Shen Yu's heart was finally at ease. He raised his chin, looked around, and said proudly, "The result is that Shen Zhi and I are tied. Everyone, what should we do now?" Shen Zhi said slowly, "It's easy because I haven't started voting yet." Shen Yu sneered, "Have you forgotten that we are candidates? We are not qualified to vote." Shen Zhi looked up at him and said indifferently, "As a candidate, I am not qualified to vote. But as the owner of 20% of the shares, I have the absolute right to speak." Shen Yu could not hold back and retorted loudly, 20% of the shares? You are lying through your teeth. We all know that you only have 10% of the shares in your hands. Shen Zhi's lips curled. Zhongxin Technology Corporation has acquired 10% of the shares from Wang Fuhai. And I am the chairman of Zhongxin Technology Corporation. In my hands, I now have 20% of the shares of the Shen Group. Even if I want to acquire the Shen Group, it is just a matter of words. The meeting room was once again in an uproar. Shen Jianhao was so angry that his face and neck were red. Acquire the Shen Group? This was definitely a threat. He was so angry that he was speechless. Was that bastard his son? Why did he always go against him, and even want to ruin his family business? He really wanted to strangle his eldest son to death. Shen Yu felt like he was struck by lightning. There was only one voice that kept echoing in his mind. The chairman of Zhongxin Technology Corporation. F***CK, was Shen Zhi still human? When Zhongxin Technology Corporation was established, he was still abroad. Was his ability really that amazing? Ad. Xinwu 799. Chapter 928. No matter how much Shen Jianhao and his son objected, they couldn't stop Shen Zhi's determination to change the dynasty. With the support of the other half of the people, he walked up to the throne of Shen Group CEO. A new broom sweeps clean. The first person he targeted was Shen Yu's uncle, Tao Mingliang. In fact, Shen Zhi already knew about Tao Mingliang's embezzlement. He didn't punish him previously because he was waiting for him to cause trouble for Shen Jianhao and his son. That way, he could take them down in one fell swoop. Shen Yu was demoted to a department manager because of misreporting profits, abuse of power and other problems. Even if Shen Jianhao held on to the position of CEO, he was like a tiger without its teeth and could no longer be awe-inspiring. When Shen Zhi was promoted to the position of CEO of Shen Group, and the merger of Shen Group and Zhongxian Technology, these two news dominated the headlines of the newspapers. Ji Yuqi's revenge against Lu Jianfeng also officially began. Wu Shuyi was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit. The woman sitting opposite her had a face that was similar to Chen Tingfang's. She was holding a handkerchief in her small, fair hand, covering the corner of her mouth as she sobbed and complained tearfully, as if Wu Shuyi had done something wrong to her. The woman had been crying for more than half an hour. From her crying, Wu Shuyi found out that her name was Wang Minghan. She used to be a teacher at a primary school in Hancheng. When Lu Jianfeng came to her school for an inspection, the two of them met for the first time. The second time they met was when she was being harassed by some hooligans. Lu Jianfeng appeared like a god and saved her. Hence, in order to repay him for saving her life, the two of them had their first date. Sister, please sister. I beg you to forgive Afong. Everything is my fault. I shouldn't have fallen in love with him. I know it's wrong of me to do this, but I really can't control myself. Sister, Afeng's career is taking off now. Please don't ruin him. If you have any dissatisfaction, you can take it out on me. She kept calling him Feng, as if she was afraid that others wouldn't know how much they loved each other. Seeing that Wu Shiyi was unmoved, Wang Minghan simply knelt down in front of her. Tears streamed down her face as she cried miserably. "Elder sister, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have interfered in your relationship when your relationship wasn't good. But when it comes to matters of the heart, it's really not something we can control. We truly love each other. Elder sister, please forgive us this time for the sake of the child." This coffee shop was very famous, and there were many customers every day. Even though they were in a half-closed private room, Wang Menghan's crying voice could still be clearly heard in the private room next door. Their movements attracted the attention of many people, and a few customers even intentionally or unintentionally looked in their direction. Wu Shiyi's lips curled up mockingly. This woman really knew how to pick a place. Did she think that she wouldn't make things difficult for her in front of so many people? She had originally planned to maintain a harmonious relationship with Lu Jianfeng on the surface, and create a normal environment for her son to grow up in. But she didn't expect that the mistress couldn't hold it in, and took the initiative to come in front of her to cause trouble. Did she really think that she was a soft persimmon? Wu Shiyi ignored the woman kneeling on the floor, and took a sip of her coffee. She also ignored the gazes of the people around her. When you have been hurt to the extreme, when you are in extreme despair, nothing can hurt you anymore. Sister, I don't ask for your forgiveness, but please forgive Ah Feng. As long as you are willing to forgive him, I can go far away and never come into contact with him again. Wang Minghan raised her face full of tears, looking very pitiful. But that pair of charming phoenix eyes revealed a reluctant expression, causing the lecherous men around her to feel pity for her. They felt that the first wife was too arrogant and heartless, and secretly criticized her. No wonder the first wife was abandoned by her husband. Wu Shiyi didn't know what the lecherous men around her were thinking, and of course, she didn't care what they thought. She slowly placed the coffee cup on the table, lowered her eyes to look at Wang Minghan, and said indifferently, "Miss Wang, I want to correct 3 things. Firstly, I am the only daughter in my family, and I don't have a sister like you. Secondly, I don't want to know about the mess between the two of you. So don't cry in front of me about how the two of you met, and how much you love each other. Lastly, I won't divorce my husband, and I won't make the matter between the two of you known to everyone. So please don't say anything about me letting him off." Wang Minghan stopped crying, and she looked at Wu Shiyi in confusion. That dazed look of hers was like a little white rabbit, and she looked especially pitiful. "Sister, oh no, Mrs. Lu, I didn't know. I really didn't know that crying in front of you would cause you trouble. I'm really sorry." It had to be said that Wang Minghan was a woman who knew when to yield, and when not to. She calmly stood up from the floor and sat back in her seat, as if the person who was crying on the floor wasn't her. She took out a stack of photos from her handbag and handed it to Wu Shiyi, and said pitifully, "Mrs. Lu, you really won't make things difficult for Ah Feng? But if you won't make things difficult for him, then why did you mail these photos to me?" Wu Shiyi's eyebrows twitched. She didn't need to look at the photos to know what the content was. She despised them and didn't want to come into contact with those things. But Wang Minghan stuffed one of the photos into her hands and said with tears in her eyes, "Mrs. Lu, did I misunderstand what you wrote on this photo? You really won't make things difficult for Ah Feng and me?" Wu Shiyi was forced to flip the photo over. On the back of the photo, there was a delicate and strong handwriting. "I know about the matter between the two of you. If you really love him, please leave him." This tone really sounded like a letter from a wife to a mistress. Wu Shiyi looked at the delicate handwriting and frowned, but she quickly relaxed. She thought that she had guessed who wrote it. It must be the mysterious person who sent her the message. Her feelings towards the mysterious person were very complicated. She resented the other party for exposing her seemingly harmonious life, but she was also grateful that the other party had saved her from a false love. And now, she was very curious. Who was the other party? What did they want to do? Why did they warn the mistress after warning her? She lowered her eyes and pondered. Wang Menghan's sobbing sounded in her ears again. "Mrs. Lu, whether you did it or not, I am very grateful for your magnanimity. Thank you for your understanding." "Understanding?" Wu Shuyi raised her eyebrows sarcastically. When did I say that I would forgive you? Wang Minghan said hesitantly. But you just said that you wouldn't make things difficult for us. Wu Shuyi said coldly. I only said that I wouldn't make things difficult for you. I didn't say that I would forgive you. Please don't act on your own. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Please forgive me, okay? I'm really sad. I didn't want it to be like this. As long as you are willing to forgive me, even if you want me to leave him, I can accept it. Haha, what great true love. Then leave him. At the same time, go to the TV station to publicly apologize and promise that you will never seduce my husband again. What do you think of my suggestion? Mrs. Liu. Wang Minghan stammered. Didn't she say that she wouldn't make things difficult for her in phone? Why did she want her to go to the TV station to publicly apologize? Wasn't that a slap to Feng's face? Wu Shuyi was already on the verge of exploding. As a wife, her husband was having a mistress outside. She was already very hurt. For the sake of her family, she was willing to maintain harmony on the surface. However, the mistress didn't think so. She wanted nothing more than to force her to divorce. She was furious. When she spoke, she could no longer hold back her anger. She stared at Wang Menghan's disgusting face and said sternly, You specially invited me out and knelt on the ground to beg for my forgiveness. So it was all talk and no action? Wang Minghan shrunk her neck as if she was frightened by her anger. She appeared weak and pitiful. No, sister. Listen to me. I really want to seek your forgiveness. Stop. Wu Shuyi raised her hand and interrupted her. She said coldly, I don't see any regret in your actions at all. Or rather, you just want to cry in front of me, kneel down, and beg for forgiveness so that you can comfort your conscience. Then, you can be with my husband with a clear conscience and no longer have to bear any moral burden? No, it's really not. I'm sincere. Shut up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Talking to a shameless woman like you is lowering my status and my style. You can live well with your true love. However, don't expect me to divorce him. I'm his wife. Even if he doesn't love me, he has to give me and my son some dignity. Wu Shuyi stood up and walked out of the cafe. Wang Minghan didn't care about how many people were staring at her in public. She stood up and shouted pitifully, Sister, he doesn't love you at all. What's the point of you tying him up like this? She had been Lu Jianfeng's mistress for 10 years, and had given birth to Yingying for him. She had never fought with him or forced him to divorce. However, this didn't mean that she didn't have any selfish motives. On the contrary, she really wanted to become his wife. She really wanted Yingying to call him father and not uncle. However, she was a smart woman. She knew that doing so would arouse Lu Jianfeng's disgust, so she had been very obedient and listened to his arrangements. She was like a beast hibernating in the dark, waiting for the right time to come. This time, when Wu Shuyi sent her the photos, she saw hope. She thought that as long as Wu Shuyi took the initiative to divorce Lu Jianfeng, she would have a chance to become his wife. She had asked Wu Shuyi out because she wanted to use her and Lu Jianfeng's love to defeat her. She wanted to make her panic and destroy her own Great Wall. She didn't expect Wu Shuyi to be so powerful. She was able to counter her every move and force her into a desperate situation. Come and see. Songshu 566. Chapter 929. Wang Minghan shouted in a moment of desperation. She realized that everyone in the cafe was looking at her with disdain. She clenched her fists and bit her lips to hold back her tears. She looked straight at Wu Shuyi, as if she was expecting her to say something like, I don't want that man anymore. You can go ahead. Wu Shuyi looked back at her expressionlessly. She only felt that the woman in front of her was extremely disgusting. She had never seen such a cheap woman. Thanks to this woman, Wu Shuyi also started to hate Chen Tingfang's face. Wu Shuyi was too lazy to walk to her side and smell the B***TCH on her. She simply stood where she was and said calmly and slowly, You said that you are a teacher, but I really doubt what kind of students you can teach. Shameless, unethical, and immoral. Do you deserve the great title of Engineer of Human Souls? I feel sad for your students and ashamed for your daughter. Regardless of whether I have feelings for my husband or not, as long as we're not divorced, You have no right to interfere. You also have no right to stand in front of me and say those words just now. Take care of yourself and never see you again." With that, she turned around and left, leaving behind an elegant and cold back view. In the cafe, a man in a black suit and gold-rimmed glasses clapped his hands and sighed. This first wife is really a good woman with wisdom and self-restraint. Her husband must be blind to find such a mistress. The beautiful woman sitting opposite the man teased. "Didn't you just say that the mistress is beautiful? So what if she's beautiful? She's full of vulgarity and narrow-minded. Compared to the first wife, she's just an unremarkable wild chrysanthemum." The criticism of the mistress grew louder and louder. Wang Minghan was ashamed and sad. Big drops of tears fell down. She didn't dare to stay any longer and grabbed her handbag to escape. After Wang Minghan fled in embarrassment, the customers in the coffee shop were still enthusiastic and talked about the story of the battle between the mistress and the ex-wife. The man who had applauded Wu Shuyi just now was fiddling with a small camera in his hand. Ji Yuqi, who was sitting opposite him, took off the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and chuckled. "How was it? Did you get it?" Liang Yu passed the camera to her and raised his eyebrows. "Look, my skills are professional." Ji Yuqi picked up the camera and flipped through it. She smiled with satisfaction. "Very good. Now that I have this, I want Lu Jianfeng and that mistress to lose their reputation." Liang Yu adjusted his glasses and chuckled. "You seem to hate mistresses?" Ji Yuqi leaned back in her chair leisurely. "But of course, those bastards who have affairs are worse than mistresses." "And that?" What Lu Jianfeng cared about most was his power. If he lost his status, power, and money, he would not be able to be so arrogant. Secondly, the one he truly loved was Chun Tingfang. If his abnormal love was exposed to the public, it would definitely hurt the one he truly loved. It would lead to the disdain of the world, and he might even be betrayed by his friends and family. In the end, as a father, it was impossible for him to maintain his dignity in front of his children. He would let his children see what kind of scum he was. Although it might be a little cruel to Lu Tianhao and Wang Yingying, Lu Jianfeng should have expected that day to come when he did all that. An online news article titled, "Mistress Kneels and Cries in a Coffee Shop, Claiming True Love and Begging the First Wife for Her Blessings," quickly became popular and made the headlines of social news. The eyewitness even uploaded a 10-minute-long video. In the video, the mistress was lovely and moving. She knelt in front of the first wife and begged for forgiveness. She kept talking about the love story between her and the first wife's husband. Many female netizens stood up and scolded her, saying that the mistress was not begging for forgiveness at all. She was clearly demonstrating her power. There were also many male netizens who supported the first wife. They said that the first wife was very magnanimous and rational. She was also very well-mannered. She was way better than the mistress. This online news was quite popular. In the end, it made it to the TV news and was shown to the people of Ying City during the prime time. A rather popular program about relationships between men and women also started a heated discussion with this topic. At the scene of the program, the audience actively participated in the interaction and scolded the mistress. Just when the situation was getting out of hand, a guest suddenly said, "I wonder if everyone feels that the mistress looks very familiar?" The host was famous for his iron mouth. He said without hesitation, "After hearing what you said, I also realized that the mistress in the news looks very similar to a certain rich man's wife." The guest joked, "I wonder who the cheating husband is? Don't tell me that it involves another rich man's secret?" Just when the guests were joking with the host, a call came in. A member of the audience revealed that the mistress in the news was a kindergarten teacher. She was the mistress of a high-ranking official. He also revealed that the high-ranking official had been keeping her as his mistress for 10 years. Hearing this news, the guests at the scene were collectively silent for a few seconds. They started to worry that the high-ranking official had seen through their mouths. They were worried that the high-ranking official would take revenge on them. On the other hand, Lu Jianfeng did watch this episode of the talk show. The worst thing was that he was watching it with his wife and child. His son's body was gradually recovering. The couple took him home, and the family finally had a reunion dinner. After the meal, His wife turned on the TV and randomly picked a channel. Unexpectedly, in less than 2 minutes, the program played the video of his wife and Wang Minghan talking at the cafe. Seeing Wang Minghan kneeling and crying in the video and hearing his wife's cold and rational words, Lu Jianfeng was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. His fingers were trembling. He grabbed the remote control and quickly changed the channel. In the living room, the atmosphere was strange. No one spoke. Only the female lead of the bitter drama on the TV was crying and yelling. I gave birth to your children. I gave up my career for you. I gave up my youth for you. Why did you do something that betrayed me? Look, there were so many betrayed loves in this world. There were so many hurt wives. How ironic. Wu Shuyi admired herself. In this situation, she could not help but laugh. However, in the end, her face was covered with tears. Only bitterness flowed into the corner of her mouth. Lu Tianhao felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was dumbfounded and his mind went blank. After a long while, he turned his head stiffly and looked at his father and then at his mother. He said dryly, Mom, the woman in the video looks a lot like you. At this point, there was no need to pretend anymore. Wu Shuyi smiled with tears and rubbed his head. Silly son, the woman in the video is your mom. Lu Tianhao suddenly became agitated. He jumped up from the sofa and held his head as he yelled. No, the people in the TV station must have made a mistake. Mom, you must have made a mistake too. I don't believe it's true. After saying that, he quickly turned around and ran toward the door. Wu Shuyi was the first to react. She quickly chased after him and called her son's name, trying to stop him. Lu Jianfeng was stunned for a moment and quickly chased after him. Lu Tianhao's mind was in a mess. He tried to convince himself that the video on the TV was not real. His father, the father he respected since he was young, had never cheated on his mother. There was no mistress who made trouble for his mother. However, in front of him, there was a woman's face that looked very similar to his aunt. That woman was crying and begging for his mother's forgiveness. He felt that his world had collapsed. His father, who had taught him to keep himself clean and to distinguish right from wrong, had an affair. Moreover, that mistress had the face of his aunt. Could it be that his father and his aunt? Stop thinking about it, Lu Tianhao. You can't think about it anymore. He was about to go crazy. He used his right hand to hit his head and sprinted on the road. Only this extreme speed could make him temporarily forget about those disgusting thoughts. Little Hao, come back. Don't run anymore. Little Hao, don't run anymore. Mom is begging you. Calm down. The night was blurry and the lights were dim. His parents' hurried voices came from behind him. Lu Tianhao turned a deaf ear to them. Or rather, he could not hear anything. There was only one thought in his mind, which was to run faster, faster, and get away from this disgusting place. Even if he was smart and precocious, he was still a 17-year-old boy. It was the time for him to shape his worldview and outlook on life. His father, who he had always respected, was a high-ranking official in Ying City. In his heart, he was like a god. Now that such a scandal had happened and hurt his poor mother, he could not accept it and could not forgive him. He ran very fast, and the tears at the corners of his eyes had long been dried by the wind. The whistling of the wind blew past his ears, stinging his cheeks. He wanted to blend himself into the darkness and escape the cruel reality. He ran towards the darkest road. At this moment, a blinding light shot from the corner. He instinctively used his arm to shield his eyes. Accompanied by the screeching sound of brakes, his body was sent flying and landed on the cement road with a loud bang. Little Hao. The moment he lost consciousness, he heard his parents' heart-wrenching screams. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 930. The lights in the operating room were still on. In the corridor of the hospital, Wu Shuyi sat on the bench with her arms crossed. Her body was trembling. The scene of Lu Jianfeng being hit by the car kept replaying in her mind. His blood stained the road red, and it also soaked her feelings for Lu Jianfeng. Lu Jianfeng sat beside her. His tall and straight body was very tense, like a stone statue. His heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. He saw his son get into a car accident because of him. This kind of shock, this kind of pain, it was hard to describe. He turned his head stiffly and saw his wife in a daze. He wanted to hug her and comfort her. Just as he reached out, before he could touch her, she screamed, "Don't touch me. Go away." His hand froze in midair. There was no going back between them, even though he was starting to regret it. The melodious ringtone of the phone rang. It was especially clear in the quiet corridor. Lu Jianfeng retracted his hand and took out the phone in his pocket. Seeing the caller ID, he hesitated for a second and did not answer. He turned off the phone. Wu Shuyi looked at him expressionlessly. She didn't need to say anything to know who was on the phone. She said coldly, "Don't you need to answer? Maybe she has something important to tell you." Lu Jianfeng's face darkened. His voice was low and hoarse. "Shuyi, I'm sorry." "Haha, sorry? Is a simple apology enough to pay off the debt you owe me? Your feelings are really cheap." Even though she was secretly warning herself to stop talking nonsense with him, but in the face of his heartlessness, she couldn't help but want to ridicule him. Lu Jianfeng's lips moved. He wanted to say something, but the door of the operating room suddenly opened. Lu Tianhao's head was hit, causing a slight concussion. There was also a scratch, a comminuted fracture of his right leg, and many soft tissue contusions on his body. When he was pushed out of the operating room, Wu Shuyi could not help but cover her mouth and cry. Was that still her son? He was wrapped in gauze and half of his hair was shaved off. Her poor son suffered so much pain at such a young age. And all of this was caused by Lu Jianfeng. Hatred, like a budding vine, grew and spread in her heart. She bit the back of her hand hard. Her eyes were frighteningly cold. Wang Menghan anxiously paced back and forth in the living room with the phone in her hand. When she saw the video on TV, she was scared out of her wits. She didn't dare to call Lu Jianfeng, afraid that he would find out what she had done. She was anxious and didn't know who to ask for help. Later, she summoned up the courage to call Lu Jianfeng. Even if she was scolded by him, she would accept it. The most important thing now was to come up with a solution. She dialed again and again, but the phone was always turned off. She was about to go crazy. She locked herself in the bedroom, wrapped herself in the quilt, and cried in fear. The next day, Wang Menghan went to work at the kindergarten. When she walked to the school gate, she met a few colleagues. She found that they were looking at her with disdain. Some of them even whispered that she was a vixen who seduced other people's husbands. She was ashamed and wronged. Her eyes turned red. She bit her lip and walked quickly to the school. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman rushed in front of her. She grabbed her hair and slapped her while shouting, "You vixen, how dare you seduce my husband? I'll tear your face apart. Let's see how you seduce other men." This was the school gate. The middle-aged woman's ruckus attracted a lot of people. Children, parents, and kindergarten teachers all came to watch the show. Wang Menghan was in pain and shame. She struggled and explained, "I didn't. You've got the wrong person." Where did this middle-aged woman come from? She had never seen her before. Could it be that Wu Shuyi found her? Wang Menghan guessed right. This shrewish middle-aged woman was found by Wu Shuyi. Wu Shuyi wore sunglasses and sat in her car, coldly looking at Wang Menghan, who was being beaten and scolded by the middle-aged woman. She originally didn't want to touch Wang Menghan, but after her son got into a car accident because of her and Lu Jianfeng's scandal, her heart was filled with hatred. "I'll beat you to death, you vixen. I'll let you seduce other people's husbands. I've seen a lot of sluts like you. Isn't it just because my husband is rich and powerful? In ancient times, you're just a concubine in my family. You're just a plaything for men to enjoy. If I want to hit you, I'll hit you. If I want to scold you, I'll scold you. If I'm unhappy, I'll sell you to a brothel and let you be ridden by thousands of people. Let's see what you're so proud of, you little bitch." The middle-aged woman's fighting strength was very strong. She grabbed Wang Menghan and beat and scolded her, completely ruining her inside and face. Wang Menghan was a delicate and weak little white flower. How could she be a match for a woman? After being slapped a few times, her entire face swelled up like a steamed bun. Her eyes were filled with tears as she cried pitifully. She kept saying, "You've got the wrong person. I didn't seduce your husband." Unfortunately, the surrounding people were mostly women. No one liked a mistress, and no one was confused by her tears. They all chimed in and pointed at her. I didn't expect her to be such a person. She looks pure and kind on the surface, but she's actually a little slut. She's seducing one man after another. Her methods are really brilliant. Men just like this kind of enchanting woman. Bah, what the hell is this? Isn't she just a high-class prostitute? Those prostitutes are nobler than her. At least they didn't destroy other people's families. Last time, my husband took the initiative to participate in the class meeting. I even said that the sun rose from the west. I didn't expect him to be fascinated by this vixen. Transfer class, we must transfer my child's class. Under the education of this kind of teacher, can the child grow up normally? This kind of bad woman doesn't deserve to be a teacher at all. Those who agree, come with me to the principal's office and ask to transfer your child's class. The scene became more and more lively. Some people who were watching the show couldn't help but take out worthless things from their bags and throw them at Wang Menghan. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hurry up and let go. If you hit her again, we'll call the police. Several security guards hurried over and coaxed the people who were watching the show away. They also separated the middle-aged woman and Wang Menghan. The middle-aged woman left a few harsh words and cursed as she walked away. Wang Menghan was incomparably embarrassed. Her hair was messy, her cheeks were swollen, and her clothes were torn. She was like a beggar who had climbed out of a pile of beggars. Faced with the contemptuous eyes and sarcastic words of the people around her, she could no longer hold on. She covered her cheeks and cried as she ran out of the school. She didn't care about any work anymore. She just wanted to hide in a corner where there was no one around and no longer suffer the ridicule and cold eyes of the world. She ran to the car that Lu Jianfeng had bought for her, and found that the car's windows were broken, and the tires were punctured. She had no choice but to cover her face and take a taxi. She was so embarrassed that even 2 taxi drivers refused to take her. When she finally found a taxi, she shrank into the back seat and cried until she was out of breath. Her phone suddenly rang. She thought that it was Lu Jianfeng calling, so she quickly took out her phone. However, she found that it was an unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Wang Yingying's mother? Yingying got into a fight with a classmate. Please come to the school. Wang Menghan was anxious and asked in a hoarse voice. Why would Yingying get into a fight with someone? She has always been very obedient. Are the children hurt? The person on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment and said, the 2 children have some scratches. It's not convenient to say some things over the phone. You'd better come to the school. Wang Menghan was anxious and couldn't be bothered to cry anymore. After returning home, she hurriedly washed up and put on a mask and sunglasses before going out to the primary school that Wang Yingying attended. In the form teacher's office, Wang Menghan saw her daughter, the boy who fought with her daughter, Xiaonan, and Xiaonan's mother. The 2 children sat silently in a chair while the form teacher talked to Xiaonan's mother. When the woman saw Wang Yingying appear, she immediately stood up and shouted in dissatisfaction. You're Wang Yingying's mother. How did you educate your child? Look at how your daughter has beaten my son. Xiaonan's lips were scratched and his cheeks were scratched by her nails. Wang Yingying's injuries were worse than his. Her forehead was cut and bandaged, making her look extremely pitiful. Wang Menghan's heart ached. She bent down and looked at her daughter's face. She said sternly, Yingying, tell mommy, why did you fight with your classmate? Tears welled up in Wang Yingying's eyes as she said tearfully, Xiaonan scolded me first. He said that I was the daughter of a vixen, and that I was an illegitimate child. Mommy, I'm not an illegitimate child. I have an uncle. Wang Menghan's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. She pulled her daughter into her arms and turned to look at the woman. She said angrily, Did you hear that? It was your son who scolded my daughter first. She's still so young. How could he say such vicious words to hurt her? The woman stared at Wang Menghan's red and swollen cheeks in disdain and sneered. Since you've become a whore, don't pretend to be chaste. You're a vixen to begin with. My son didn't say anything wrong. Wang Menghan cried out involuntarily, but my daughter is innocent. How could you adults educate your child like this? Ha ha ha, you're just a national mistress. How dare you talk to me about education? Don't make me laugh my head off. Your daughter beat my son up like this. She has to apologize to Xiaonan. Why? It's clearly your son's fault. If there's an apology, he should be the one to do it first. The two women quarreled like crazy. The homeroom teacher was about to be angered to death by them. What kind of quality was this? They were about the same. She slammed the table and said loudly, "This is a school. Please calm down. Don't set a bad example for your child." The two women finally regained their senses under the reprimand of the homeroom teacher. They reluctantly made up. "Mom, why do people say that I'm an illegitimate child? Why do they scold you? Mom, does Uncle not want us anymore?" On the way home, her daughter curled up in Wang Menghan's arms and cried softly like a pitiful kitten. She cried until her heart ached. She hugged her daughter tightly and shed tears of regret. "I'm sorry, baby. It's all Mom's fault. All of this is Mom's fault. If she hadn't been greedy and vain back then, if she hadn't been so ambitious and just lived a peaceful life with her daughter, if however, in this world, there weren't so many ifs. Since she had made a choice, she had to pay the price for her choice. Even if it was a bitter fruit, she had to swallow it." Beauty novel Songshu 566. Chapter 931. She carried her daughter back home and found Lu Jianfeng sitting on the sofa waiting for her. She was filled with grievances and sadness. "Afeng." Before she could finish her words, Lu Jianfeng slapped her face. The loud sound scared Wang Yingying so much that she burst into tears. Lu Jianfeng's face was green as he said sternly, "Don't cry." Wang Yingying was so scared that her body trembled. Her face was pale as she held back her tears. Wang Minghan's heart ached. She bit her lips and said, "Don't scare the child. If you have anything to say, let's talk in the room." Lu Jianfeng grabbed her wrist and dragged her to the master bedroom. He threw her onto the big bed. His whole body was filled with anger. He pointed at her nose and scolded, "Who do you think you are? How dare you make a scene in front of my wife? Wang Menghan, has your brain been eaten by a dog?" "I'm sorry, Afeng. I really didn't do it on purpose. I thought that Wu Shiyi would make things difficult for you, so I wanted to plead with her. I didn't expect." Wang Menghan quickly got up and rushed to Lu Jianfeng's side. She hugged him tightly and kept saying, "I really didn't do it on purpose. Afeng, don't be angry. Don't be angry." Her face was full of scars and she didn't look beautiful at all. Now that she was showing a pitiful expression, it was even more terrifying. Lu Jianfeng's little bit of pity turned to ashes. He kicked her away and said angrily, "Get lost. This time, I'm in big trouble because of you. Hurry up and pack your things and go back to Hanqing City." She couldn't stay in Ying City any longer. If someone found out that Wang Menghan was his mistress, the image he had painstakingly built up would be destroyed. "Okay, I'll leave. Afeng, please don't leave Ying behind on account of our years of friendship. She's still so young, she can't be without a father." Wang Menghan's face was full of tears. Even if she was forced to leave him, she wanted to find a good home for Ying, so that she wouldn't have to suffer with her. Although Lu Jianfeng doted on his younger daughter, and often used material things to make up for what he owed her, this kind of doting was controlled within a certain range. Once it crossed his bottom line, he would turn hostile. In his eyes, his power and status, as well as his public image, was something that Wang Menghan and her daughter could never hope to achieve. He was silent for a moment before he said in a deep voice, "Ying will still be raised by you. I will give you a sum of money, enough for you to live a prosperous life." Wang Menghan couldn't believe what she had just heard. She cried and begged him, begging him to take care of her daughter, but Lu Jianfeng had already made up his mind. She pestered him even more, and he frowned impatiently. "No matter what you say, it's useless. Hurry up and pack your luggage. Go back to Hanqing today and never come back." Wang Menghan cried for a while, knowing that he would not change his mind. She could only endure the heartache and hurriedly pack her luggage. In less than an hour, she packed up her valuables, took her daughter's little hand and walked out of the door. This apartment was bought under her name when Lu Jianfeng first started working in Ying City. She thought that she could stay here with her daughter forever. Who would have thought that she would be forced to leave after a few months? She held her daughter's hand and reluctantly looked at her one last time before she followed Lu Jianfeng into the elevator. The three of them had just walked downstairs when a group of reporters rushed up and snapped their cameras. The dazzling flashes made Wang Menghan unable to open her eyes. Her first reaction was to hug her daughter and hide her daughter's face in her arms. On the other hand, Lu Jianfeng's first reaction was to let go of Wang Menghan's arm and put some distance between them. "Mayor Lu, what's your relationship with Miss?" "Mayor Lu, someone on the internet said that you took care of Miss Wang Menghan. Is it true?" The reporters asked questions all at once. Their doubts were like a fierce tide that rushed towards Lu Jianfeng and Wang Menghan. They were surrounded by the reporters and could not escape. In the end, the security guards of the neighborhood came and coaxed the reporters away. Only then did the three of them escape. Before Lu Jianfeng could do anything, the news of him keeping a mistress spread like wildfire. It occupied the headlines of the radio stations and newspapers. When the news got deeper and deeper, everyone found that Wang Menghan looked very similar to Chen Tingfang. What did this mean? Suddenly, the kept woman incident was upgraded to a taboo love affair. Lu Jianfeng became the target of public criticism. The fair, upright, and sincere image that he used to package was all destroyed. Thousands of people spat at him and called him a beast in human clothing. Wang Menghan was also dragged out and scolded. Even Chen Tingfang was implicated. Occasionally, when she went out and was recognized, she would be pointed at and ridiculed. The Lu family had a certain foundation in Hansheng. It was not easy for them to cultivate a mayor. They wanted to use him to rise up the ranks. They did not expect Lu Jianfeng to do such a shameful thing. When the head of the Lu family, great-grandfather Lu, heard the news, he was anxious and angry. He stomped on the floor with his walking stick, almost poking a hole in the floor. After his anger subsided, great-grandfather Lu went around to pull strings to protect Lu Jianfeng. Unexpectedly, someone anonymously mailed a report to the relevant department. It was full of evidence that Lu Jianfeng had done a lot of illegal things. Which official could be innocent? They had more or less made some mistakes. However, some could be forgiven, and some could not. Originally, Lu Jianfeng keeping a mistress was not a big deal. At most, he would be dismissed and could return to the political stage after a few years. However, he provoked Jiyuqi. Jiyuqi relied on Liang Yu, a super detective, to investigate many secrets. For example, Lu Jianfeng once opened the back door and stuffed the son of his old friend into the civil service. Another example was that he was old classmates with a construction company, and naturally, he handed over several big projects to his old classmate. Even if he did things according to the proper procedures, as long as the other party had a personal relationship with him, bribery, malpractice, and other illegal things could be put on his head. When Lu Jianfeng's scandals were flying everywhere, even if the higher-ups wanted to protect him, they had to consider the pressure of the public opinion. After that, the relevant department filed a case to investigate Lu Jianfeng's serious violations of the law. After investigation, Lu Jianfeng used the convenience of his position to seek benefits for others, accepted bribes, kept a mistress, and lived a corrupt lifestyle. This constituted a serious violation of the law. The relevant department decided to expel him from the party, remove him from public office, and confiscate his property. After Lu Jianfeng fell from the horse, Wu Shiyi immediately packed her luggage and moved to her rented house. She filed a divorce lawsuit and asked the court to award her son and the flower shop. She didn't want anything else. Before the court hearing, Lu Jianfeng talked to Wu Shiyi in private, trying to persuade her not to divorce. However, Wu Shiyi was determined to divorce him. She looked into his eyes and said slowly, "Do you know when I found out that you were cheating? It was when Xiao Hao was hospitalized, and you were playing with Wang Menghan and her daughter at the amusement park." Lu Jianfeng's body stiffened. His deep eyes were filled with pain. He said in a deep voice, "Since you found out a long time ago, why did you wait until now to divorce me? Is it because I have nothing now that even you want to abandon me?" Wu Shiyi wanted to laugh. In fact, she did laugh. She laughed until tears flowed out. She sighed and said, "Lu Jianfeng, we've known each other for more than 20 years. Even now you still don't understand me. Do you think I'm the kind of woman who loves you because of your power and status? For Lil Hao's sake, I didn't want to get a divorce. I wanted to live a peaceful life. However, I didn't expect Wang Minghan to cause a scene in front of me. You caused Lil Hao to get into a car accident. Lu Jianfeng, do you know how much I hated you when Lil Hao was injured? I can't live with you anymore. Big drops of tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. The smile on her face was bitter and sad. She tugged at the corner of her lips and continued. As you wish, I'll grant you and Wang Minghan your wish. The two of you live a good life. In the end, she still exposed her weak side in front of him. Wu Shuyi was very upset. She quickly grabbed her handbag and stood up. She said one last sentence. Lu Jianfeng, I regret falling in love with you. In the future, you're on your own. 20 years of feelings from today onwards were all cast aside. In this world, no one could not live without another. She Wu Shuyi, after leaving the scumbag, would live a more exciting life. Her sentence of regretting falling in love with him directly denied him. It was like a sharp arrow that pierced through his heart. Lu Jianfeng's face was ashen. He looked at her cold and graceful figure, and soon disappeared at the entrance of the coffee shop. Even though he had never loved her, they had been together for so many years, and still had feelings for each other. He had nothing left. His wife, his son, they were all gone. Lu Jianfeng was helpless. His marriage with Wu Shuyi finally came to an end. Lu Tianhao had a knot in his heart, and insisted on living with his mother. The mother and son supported each other, and started a new life. As for Lu Jianfeng, he was too ashamed to stay in Ying City. He brought Wang Minghan and her daughter back to Hansheng. Later on, he married Wang Minghan. However, the husband and wife often quarreled. Wang Minghan could not stand him treating her as Chen Tingfang's substitute, and he blamed Wang Minghan for causing him to lose everything. The two of them tortured each other and quarreled. After a few years, Lu Jianfeng became more and more down and out. The Lu family despised him for being an embarrassment, and kicked him out of the house. Wang Minghan also despised him for being useless. One day, she took her daughter and ran away with a boss from another city. He was completely alone and lived in pain and regret every day. After Lu Jianfeng's scandal was exposed, Chen Tingfang immediately felt a sense of crisis. She knew that the reason why Ji Bowen did not divorce her was because of her cousin. Once her cousin fell, her marriage with Ji Bowen would also come to an end. She was anxious. Firstly, she was worried about her cousin's safety. Secondly, she was worried about her own fate. However, what was to come would come. Soon, she received news that Lu Jianfeng had been divorced. Awesome novel Xingwu 799. Chapter 932. Over the next few days, she could clearly feel the servants' attitudes towards her change. Ji Yuqi and her brother no longer bothered to maintain their harmony on the surface. When they saw her, they didn't even bother to greet her. Ji Bowen also looked at her strangely, as if he would abandon her at any time. Chen Tingfang's heart was in a mess. After thinking for a long time, she dialed a number. In the dark night, the bedside lamp was still on. She leaned back against the pillow and said slowly, Old Li Ji Bowen will soon ask for a divorce. We need to start the plan as soon as possible. On the other end of the phone, a man's deep voice sounded. I'm ready. I'm just waiting for you to say the word. Give me a time. Chen Tingfang lowered her voice and said something. The man responded and the two exchanged a few more words. Finally, the room returned to silence. Ever since Lu Jianfeng fell from grace, Ji Yuqi also raised her guard. She asked Liang Yu's men to help keep an eye on Chen Tingfang, and the people she had been in contact with in case Chen Tingfang was driven into a corner and did something bad again. Ji Bowen contacted his lawyer in private and drafted a divorce agreement. He planned to officially ask Chen Tingfang for a divorce after the anniversary of his ex-wife's death. Every year, on the anniversary of his ex-wife's death, Ji Bowen would lead the children to her grave with incense, paper money and other offerings. 2 days later, it was the anniversary of his ex-wife's death. That morning, Chen Tingfang personally cooked breakfast for Ji Bowen and the others, just like in previous years. After breakfast, she politely sent them to the front door, and reminded them to be careful on the road and come home early. As soon as the car disappeared from the front door, the smile on Chen Tingfang's face immediately disappeared, and her phoenix eyes turned cold. Ever since she married into the Ji family, Ji Bowen didn't allow her to pay her respects to Su Meiyu. Perhaps he was doing it out of kindness. But in her eyes, his actions meant that she would never be recognized by his ex-wife. Since he loved Su Meiyu so much, she would let the four of them reunite in the underworld. Ji Bowen had no idea that he was leading the children on a road of death. After driving for half an hour, the black BMW left the city and entered the ring highway. The family of three chatted leisurely. Suddenly, Ji Yuqi's phone rang. After she picked it up, she heard Liang Yu's anxious voice. "Miss Ji, tell the driver to stop the car. Your car is leaking oil." "Oil leaking?" Ji Yuqi's heart tightened, and she cried out anxiously. "Uncle Wang, stop the car." As soon as she finished speaking, a small truck drove towards them. The truck driver was wearing a hat that was pulled low, covering half of his face. His right hand was placed on the car window with a burning cigarette between his fingers. He flicked his finger and the cigarette flew towards the BMW Ji Yuqi was sitting in. Looking from afar, there was a long gasoline stain on the road where the BMW drove past. The truck driver's cigarette but went under the BMW's body and fell on the oil stain. A flame instantly sprang up, and the flame burned brighter and brighter. Soon it covered the entire windshield. The sound of emergency brakes, screams and the sound of cars colliding echoed in the air. Finally, there was a loud bang and a deafening explosion. The BMW was engulfed in flames. Our station's latest news is that there was a car accident on the ring highway. A black BMW crashed into the roadside railing and exploded. The passengers in the car died on the spot. The identity of the car owner and the cause of the accident are still under investigation. When Chen Tingfang saw the news on TV, she was so excited that she almost went crazy. Ji Bowen's family of three was finally dead. Now the entire Ji family was hers. She tried her best to suppress the excitement in her heart, and quickly ran back to her bedroom. She dialed the man's number, and her voice trembled with excitement. "Oldly, did you see the news? Ji Bowen is finally dead. Ji Group is ours." The man laughed heartily. "Of course I saw it. The person I found is definitely reliable. When the news of Ji Bowen's death spreads, we'll immediately." In the empty room, the two of them colluded with each other and excitedly plotted how to take over Ji Group. That afternoon, the radio station released the latest news saying that the identity of the car owner had been confirmed. The car owner was the president of Ji Group, Ji Bowen. He had died on the spot due to an oil leak in his car. Once the news spread, the entire Ji Group was in an uproar. The few people who had a good relationship with Ji Bowen were very sad about his death. Most people were anxious and wanted to appoint a new president as soon as possible to prevent Ji Group's share price from being affected. The board of directors held an emergency meeting. One of the directors, Li Zhengsheng, suggested that the president should be decided by the number of shares. As soon as he proposed this decision, it immediately attracted opposition. The president is the executor of a company. It must be a person with outstanding ability. If the president is decided by the number of shares, it's too hasty. A director who had a good relationship with Ji Bowen said, "That's right, I don't agree either. The president should be decided by ability." Another director said, "After Bowen's death, his shares will be inherited by his children. I think that his daughter, Yuqi, is very capable and can take on this great responsibility." Li Zhengsheng's eyes moved slightly. He looked up at the person who spoke and said with a pained expression, "Director's son, don't you know? Yuqi and Ahan were both in the BMW. They were also killed." "What? How could this be?" Director's son was shocked. He had heard about Ji Bowen's death from the news. The news only said that the passengers in the car had died on the spot, and did not say how many there were. He thought that Yuqi and Ahan were not in the car. He did not expect that the two of them were also. Director Sun was heartbroken. He pounded his fist on the table bitterly. The atmosphere in the meeting room instantly froze. Some people wiped their tears with red eyes, some were silent, and some were expressionless. No one knew what they were thinking. Li Zhengsheng cleared his throat and said slowly, "I, like everyone, feel very sad and regretful about what happened to Bowen and the two children. However, the Ji Group can't go a day without a leader. We need a leader." I wonder if everyone has any thoughts on the candidate for the CEO? The man sitting opposite Li Zhengxing was already bald. He had a chubby figure, and when he smiled, he looked like a Maitreya Buddha. He said gently, I propose that Director Li be the CEO. Director Li has been the Vice President of Administration for a long time, and we have all seen his ability. I think that in this time of crisis, only he can lead the G Group to new heights. Agree with my proposal? Please raise your hands. After he finished speaking, no one raised their hands. After a few seconds, 2 people finally raised their hands. After that, people continued to raise their hands. In the end, there were exactly half of them. If more than half of the people voted, then the proposal would be passed. The chubby director who had spoken earlier wanted to say a few more words to encourage everyone to support Li Zhengxing, but Director Sun spoke first. Before I see the bones of Bowen and the 2 children, I will not agree to anyone being the CEO. After saying this, he slammed his palm on the table and stared at Li Zhengxing with his sharp eyes. He said sternly, Everyone, how many of you have followed Bowen to conquer the world and come to where you are today? At this moment when his life and death are unknown, all you think about is how to seize power. Do you still have a conscience? Li Zhengxing's expression darkened and he said coldly, Director Sun, please watch your words. We are all thinking for the G Group. We don't have any bad intentions. Besides, the media has already made it very clear that CEO G is dead. Why can't you accept reality? Just as the 2 of them were in a stalemate, the door of the meeting room was pushed open. Chen Tingfang was wearing a black dress and black high heels. She walked in gracefully and said with a sad expression, Everyone, my husband has passed away. He left a will. Now Lawyer Zhang will announce the contents of the will to everyone. Behind her was a man in a black suit with a briefcase in his hand. It was the Ji family's lawyer, Zhang Jijia. Zhang Jijia took out a sealed will from his briefcase and announced in front of everyone, Mr. Ji has divided the assets into 3 parts. The first part is 5% of G Group shares and the Ji family's villa, which will be inherited by Madam Chen Tingfang. The second part is 10% of G Group shares and the Su family's old mansion, which will be inherited by Ji Yuqi. The third part is 10% of G Group shares and all the Ji family's cash, savings and various funds, which will be inherited by Ji Yunhan. After the announcement, he glanced at everyone and said slowly, since Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan both died in the car accident, their assets will be inherited by Madam Chen Tingfang. In other words, Chen Tingfang alone received all the Ji family's assets. Everyone looked at each other and exchanged glances. If the CEO's position was determined by the number of shares, then Chen Tingfang would be the biggest winner. Director Sun's face darkened. He stood up suddenly and said, I still say the same thing. Before I see the bodies of Bowen and the 2 children, I won't acknowledge anyone. Chen Tingfang's nails dug into her palms. She had gone to the traffic control team to identify the bodies, but they said that after the car explosion, the bodies were seriously damaged and they had to deal with it to prevent the families from being unable to bear it. In other words, she had not seen the bodies of Ji Bowen and the other 2 until now. Everyone's eyes were focused on Chen Tingfang, as if they were waiting to see a good show. Chen Tingfang's eyes were calm. She took out a document from her handbag and said slowly, This is the death certificate issued by the hospital. If Director Sun has any questions, you can ask the hospital directly. Director Sun snatched the death certificate from her hand. It clearly stated that Ji Bowen and Ji Yuqi had lost their lives after being sent to the hospital. He held the death certificate tightly and squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Even so, don't even think about taking away the G Group. This is Bowen's life's work. I won't allow it to fall into your hands. Chen Tingfang sneered. Is that so? I have Bowen's will now. I have the right to inherit 30% of G Group shares. According to the rules, I have the right to control this company. What are you going to use to stop me? It's only 30%. And you're so arrogant. As expected of a woman with long hair and short knowledge. What ability do you have to control the overall situation? If the G Group is handed over to you, it will only be destroyed in your hands. Come and see. Xinwu 799. Chapter 933. Chen Tingfang's face darkened. She opened her mouth and was about to retort when a clear and loud voice cut through the air like an ice blade. "Well said, Uncle Sun." The crisp sound of high heels echoed in the empty corridor. A graceful and charming figure slowly walked into everyone's line of sight. Everyone stared at her in shock. Among them, Chen Tingfang and Li Zhengxing's expressions were the most interesting. Their faces alternated between green and white as monstrous shock surged in their eyes. "Ji Yuqi, she actually didn't die. It's Yuqi. Miss Ji is not dead." After the shock, everyone came back to their senses. Some of them were unusually happy, while others had complicated expressions. Only Director Sun was so happy that tears fell from his eyes. He wiped the corners of his eyes and said emotionally, "Yuqi, you little girl. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." Ji Yuqi was touched and held his hand. She said gently, "Uncle Sun, thank you." Her gratitude came from the bottom of her heart. She had seen the situation in the meeting room from the surveillance room. Other than Uncle Sun and a few other uncles who were still speaking up for the Ji family, the rest had already become Li Zhengxing and Chen Tingfang's lackeys. Just like in her previous life, when her father died in a car accident, the first person to stand up for Jiang Tianhao was Li Zhengxing. Only Uncle Sun objected. He said that Jiang Tianhao was too young and did not have enough qualifications and experience, so he was not suitable to take on such a big responsibility. However, Uncle Sun's power was meager, and he could not control the situation in the end. Jiang Tianhao still took control of the entire Ji group with Li Zhengxing's support. Thinking of this, Ji Yuqi's gaze turned cold. She turned her head and looked at Chen Tingfang expressionlessly. Chen Tingfang stiffened the corners of her lips and said dryly, "Yuqi, it's great that you're fine." Ji Yuqi said indifferently, "Good? Is it really good? You want me to die, don't you? That way, no one will compete with you for the Ji family's assets, right?" Chen Tingfang looked hurt and aggrieved. "Yuqi, how can you say that? You don't know how sad I was when I found out that you were in trouble. I wished I could go with you." Ji Yuqi raised her hand and said coldly, "Stop, Chen Tingfang. I know very well what kind of person you are. So don't say those hypocritical words again. I only feel disgusted when I hear them." After that, she ignored Chen Tingfang and walked straight to the lawyer, Zhang Jijia. She stared at him coldly. "Lawyer Zhang, my father trusted you very much. I didn't expect you to betray him. You're really disappointing." Zhang Jijia panicked, but his expression remained calm. "Miss Ji, did you misunderstand something?" Ji Yuqi said expressionlessly, "I didn't misunderstand. I know my father's will very well. He never left the shares of Ji Group to Chen Tingfang." "How dare you forge a will? How dare you? Miss Ji, you must be mistaken. This is your father's will. No one has changed it. Whether this will has been changed or not, please go to the police station and explain it to the police." Ji Yuqi waved her hand. The two plainclothes police officers behind her immediately walked forward and said to Zhang Jijia, "Mr. Zhang, you are suspected of tampering with the will. Please come with us." Li Zhengxing and Chen Tingfang had originally thought that victory was already in their grasp, but in the end, the dead Ji Yuqi had suddenly appeared and ruined their plans. They were extremely furious and, at the same time, panicked. How much did Ji Yuqi know? Ji Yuqi ignored everyone's probing gazes and calmly walked to her father's seat and sat down. She raised her chin slightly and said in a calm and unyielding tone, "Dear directors, I think everyone knows about my father's car accident. I want to tell everyone that this car accident was not an accident. It was man-made. No matter who the murderer is or what his purpose is, the Ji family will not let him off. He will be severely punished by the law." These words were powerful, like a heavy hammer hitting Chen Tingfang's heart. She clenched her fists and forced a stiff smile. "Yuqi, we are all very sad that your father and Ahan are in trouble, but what you said just now seems to be suspecting the directors here. This doesn't seem very good." Ji Yuqi looked at her coldly and said in a voice as cold as ice, "I'm just stating the facts. If someone insists on assuming that she is guilty, then I can only say that she is guilty. Chen Tingfang, before the matter is clear, you have no right to stand here. According to my father's will, you have nothing to do with Ji Group. So please leave now and don't delay our meeting. Chen Tingfang's face turned pale, and a trace of hatred flashed in the depths of her eyes. Before she could say anything, 2 security guards had already walked up to her. Madam Chen, please leave. If she didn't leave, she would be thrown out by the security guards. Chen Tingfang saw that the people around her were watching a good show, and felt that she had suffered a great humiliation. She gritted her teeth and glanced at Li Zhengxing again. In the end, she left in a sorry state with a stomach full of resentment and anger. Now that the irrelevant people have been cleared out, let's resume the meeting. Ji Yuqi tapped on the conference table with her finger, and the meeting room suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at her. At this moment, she was no longer the university student who had yet to graduate. The domineering aura that she exuded was like that of a strong woman who had been in the business world for many years. Her calm gaze and cold and steady tone made people involuntarily believe in her. This is the agreement my father signed before the accident. Before Ahan takes over the company, all the company's affairs will be managed by me. She picked up a piece of document and unfolded it to present it to everyone. Li Zhengxing's gaze turned cold. Ji Bowen had actually signed such a thing before the accident. Director Sun couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Ahan is still alive. Initially, when Director Sun saw that Yuqi was still alive, he thought that she was the only one who survived. He was worried that it would bring up her sad memories, so he did not ask about Ji Bowen and Ji Yunhan's situation. The corners of Ji Yuqi's lips curled up slightly. There was a touch of warmth in her gaze as she looked at Director Sunday. Ahan is still alive. Thank you, Uncle Sun, and all the other directors for your concern. However, Ahan was injured and is still receiving treatment in the hospital. It will take about a month for him to recover. Now it's just the 2 of us left. I hope that all the uncles can support us. Director Sun was someone who had followed Ji Bowen when he started his business. The 2 of them had a very good relationship. After confirming from Yuqi that Ji Bowen had passed away, he was very sad. He choked with sobs and said, Yuqi, my condolences. If your father saw that you were so successful, he would definitely be very happy. Yuqi, we watched you grow up. Uncle Sun will be the first to stand on your side. Ji Yuqi's eyes reddened as she nodded and said, Thank you, Uncle Sun. With the first, there was a second and a third. Seeing that nearly half of the people were standing on Ji Yuqi's side, Li Zhengxing was anxious. He gritted his teeth and said with a fake smile, Yuqi, logically speaking, I watched you grow up, so of course I should support you. However, it's not that easy to be the leader of a company. You haven't even graduated from university and have no experience. How are you going to manage this company? G Group is the blood and sweat of your father, and all the directors here. We can't just hand it over to a young girl. Everyone, what do you think? Yes. Miss G, you are indeed very outstanding, but you are too young. I'm afraid you won't be able to take on the role of the CEO. I think Director Li Zhengxing is more suitable to be the CEO. The people who had been secretly roped in by Li Zhengxing all jumped out to speak for him. In terms of numbers, it was exactly the same as those who supported Ji Yuqi. It seemed that things were not going to be easy. He had to use his trump card. Li Zhengxing narrowed his eyes. A trace of sternness flashed across his eyes. He said in a seemingly amiable manner, Everyone, please be quiet. We seem to have forgotten about someone. Although she only has 3% of the shares, she still has a say in G Group. After his reminder, someone remembered and shouted, Are you talking about Ji Wanhua? Li Zhengxing nodded. That's right. When Madame Ji Wanhua got married, Bowen gave her 3% of the shares. Although she has never participated in the shareholders' meeting, her words still carry a lot of weight in G Group. Ji Wanhua was the adopted daughter of Ji Bowen's second uncle. After marrying to America, she rarely returned to the country, let alone participated in the company's shareholders' meeting. She rarely cared about the company's matters, and was only responsible for collecting dividends. After she divorced her Taiwanese husband last year, she returned to China, saying that she wanted to spend some time with the mountains and rivers. She traveled around for a few months and still hadn't returned. When she suddenly heard her name, Ji Yuqi was a little stunned. However, she quickly reacted. Sure enough, No matter how she changed her fate in this life, the gears of fate were still moving slowly along the same path as in her previous life. Ji Yuqi smiled and said, Aunt Wanhua is still playing outside. I'm afraid it's not convenient for her to attend our meeting. Li Zhengxing said, she should have heard about such a big thing that happened in G Group. Why don't I get someone to call her and ask for her opinion? Let's postpone today's meeting for 2 days. The company can't be without a leader for a day. Director Li, since you are so close to my aunt, why don't you call her now and ask? Ji Yuqi's expression was calm, but the words that came out of her mouth felt a little strange, as if she was hinting at something. Li Zhengxing was already feeling guilty. When he heard this, his expression changed. He nodded and said, That's good. This matter shouldn't be delayed for too long. Immediately, he said to wait for a moment, and walked out of the meeting room to call Ji Wanhua. In less than 2 minutes, he walked in and announced, Madam Ji wants to have a meeting with us via video call. He turned on the remote control, and the video system immediately turned on. The huge display on the wall turned from black to blue. Finally, it switched to the image of a study room. Then Ji Wanhua appeared on the screen. She was wearing a white silk shirt with the first button unbuttoned, revealing her slender neck and exquisite collarbone. She was like a beauty carved out of white jade, sitting upright on the chair. Her every move was flawless. Before attending the meeting, I would like to say a few words to Yuqi. I'm very sorry for wasting everyone's time. After she said this apologetically, she turned her gaze to Ji Yuqi. Her eyes were filled with sadness as she said gently, Yuqi, I just found out about your father's death. I'm very sorry that I couldn't rush to your side when you were at your saddest. No matter what I do or say, you have to believe that I did it for the sake of your father and the G Group. Attention Songshu 566. Chapter 934. Ji Yuqi wanted to laugh. She was no stranger to these words. She had heard Ji Wanhua say them in her previous life. After Ji Wanhua said those words, she immediately threw Yuqi into hell. She even made it seem like she was putting righteousness before family, and was really doing what was best for G Group. What a good tactic. Ji Yuqi gathered her thoughts. Her eyes moved slightly, revealing a slightly moved expression. Her eyes reddened at just the right moment. Auntie, I know that no matter what you do, you're doing it for my father. If my father knew in the afterlife, he would also be grateful to you. The sadness in Ji Wanhua's eyes deepened. Her lips quivered a few times, and there was a hint of struggle between her brows. In the end, it seemed that reason prevailed. She pursed her lips and looked away from Ji Yuqi. Instead, she looked around at the crowd and said firmly, Dear directors, I know that the votes for Director Li and Yuqi are the same. No matter which side I support, that side will win. Here, I would like to invite everyone to be witnesses. No matter which side wins, we must establish an agreement. When Ji Yunhan turns 25, Ji Group will be handed over to Ahan. All the directors thought that Ji Wanhua had put in a lot of effort, and was indeed thinking for the Ji family. They all nodded in agreement. Ji Yuqi had no objections. Li Zhengxing also agreed without hesitation. Ji Wanhua nodded in satisfaction. Now I can announce my decision. I support Director Li Zhengxing. Director Li, I hope that when my brother is not around, you can lead Ji Group to greater heights. Everyone was in an uproar. Everyone thought that Ji Wanhua would stand on Ji Yuqi's side. After all, Ji Wanhua was Yuqi's auntie, so it was reasonable for her to support her. Even Ji Yuqi was struck by lightning. She looked at the woman on the screen in shock and asked in disbelief, Why? Auntie, why don't you support me? Ji Wanhua's face revealed a pained expression. Her beautiful eyes glistened with tears as she murmured, Yuqi, Auntie also wants to support you, but alas, don't ask. Auntie can't tell you the answer. No, Aunt, you have to tell me the answer. Why? Why did you do that? Aren't we family? Why do you help outsiders to bully me? Ji Yuqi broke down and asked her with tears. The pain on Ji Wanhua's face intensified. She shook her head and said, No, I can't tell you. Yuqi, listen to your aunt. Don't ask why. The truth is that you can't bear it. Ji Yuqi suddenly stood up. She wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and said loudly, I must get an answer. Otherwise, I will not agree to let Li Zhengxing be the CEO. Yuqi, why are you doing this? Auntie, this is my own choice. No matter what the truth is, I will bear it. So, please tell me the reason. At this moment, Ji Yuqi's expression was solemn. Her words were powerful and her entire body exuded a strong aura. Everyone present had an illusion that they were looking at old Ji. It could be said that like father, like daughter. Ji Wanhua shook her head and sighed. Forget it, forget it. Since you insist on asking, I will tell you this matter. I don't support you because you are not of the Ji family's bloodline. This news was like a bolt from the blue, shocking everyone. Ji Yuqi's body swayed, but she quickly calmed down. Her arms supported herself on the conference table. Her deep eyes surged with complex emotions as she said word by word. Auntie, you can't joke about this kind of thing. Silly girl, I'm not joking. What I said is true. This time, before Ji Yuqi could speak, Director Sun could no longer hold back. His face was cold as he said, You said that Yuqi is not of the Ji family's bloodline. What evidence do you have to prove it? Ji Wanhua's eyes were filled with compassion. She slowly said, If not for Yuqi's insistence, I originally wanted to bring this matter to the grave. Yuqi, when your mother married your father, she was already pregnant. She was raped by a thief. At that time, our relationship was very good. She begged me not to tell your father about this matter. I sympathized with her and could only choose to lie to your father. I never thought of making this matter public, so I didn't prepare any evidence. If you want to believe it, then believe it. If you don't want to believe it, then just treat it as me talking in my sleep. Since she had already said it, how could she treat it as her sleep talk? After a short period of shock, some of the directors' attitudes slowly changed. They no longer strongly opposed Li Zhengxing, and had tacitly agreed to let him be the CEO. There were also some people who began to speculate about Ji Yuqi. They wondered if she knew about her background, and suspected that she wanted to fight with Ji Yunhan for the Ji family's inheritance. Ji Yuqi's hands were tightly pressed on the conference table. Her knuckles were slightly white. Her deep eyes became colder and colder, like a sharp sword stabbing at Ji Wanhua. Her cold voice was like an icicle. Auntie, on account of us being aunt and nephew, I'll give you one last chance. Please take back what you just said and don't insult my mother. Yuqi, I know it's hard for you to accept this fact, but what I said is the truth. There's not a single lie. Yuqi, your mother had no choice back then. I didn't mean to insult her. Ji Wanhua's tone was gentle as if she was talking to a bad-tempered child. Ji Yuqi looked at her coldly. Is that so? If what you said is true, then how do you explain the paternity test I did with my father, which shows that we are father and daughter? As she spoke, she had already taken out a piece of paper from the folder and raised it high in the air. Ji Wanhua's expression froze. At an angle where the people in the conference room couldn't see, she clenched her fingers tightly. Suddenly, the corners of her lips curled up and she laughed softly. Yuqi, I didn't expect you to be so capable. You even investigated your background in advance and prepared for everything. Fortunately, I didn't choose you today. Otherwise, if the G group fell into your hands, you definitely wouldn't return it to Ahan. Auntie, this is the last time I'm calling you Auntie. I'm very curious. Why do you hate my father so much? Why do you hate the Ji family so much that you don't even hesitate to hand the family business over to someone else? Do you think that as long as Li Zhengxing controls the Ji group, you can get half of the shares? Oh, wake up, my dear auntie. You're snatching food from a tiger's mouth. Ji Yuqi's voice was cold as she spoke tirelessly as if she had heard the agreement between Ji Wanhua and Li Zhengxing with her own ears. Li Zhengxing and Ji Yuqi's expressions changed at the same time. Li Zhengxing slammed the table and said sternly, Ji Yuqi, don't go overboard. Don't think that just because your surname is Ji that you're a member of the Ji family. In the Ji group, a bastard like you can't spout nonsense. Ji Yuqi's expression turned cold. Bastard? Who are you scolding? Li Zhengxing blurted out. Bastard, of course I'm scolding you. Ji Yuqi burst out laughing. Director Li, why are you being so formal? We all know that. You don't have to rush to admit that you're a bastard, really. Li Zhengxing realized that he had fallen into her trap and his face turned red with anger. He said angrily. Ji Yuqi, you're not a member of the Ji family. You don't have the right to inherit Ji Bowen's shares, and you don't have the right to stand here. Security, hurry up and throw her out. I think the person who should be thrown out is you. The smile on Ji Yuqi's face had long disappeared, and was now covered with frost. She stared at Li Zhengsheng with cold eyes and said sternly, You colluded with Chen Tingfang and Ji Wanhua to try and take over my Ji group, and you still have the cheek to yell at me. You're really shameless to the extreme. On the other end of the screen, Ji Wanhua witnessed Ji Yuqi's outburst and retorted indignantly, Yuqi, I supported Li Zhengsheng for the sake of the big picture. Don't maliciously slander me just because I exposed your background and ambitions. Wanhua, you've really disappointed me. Just as the atmosphere was about to freeze, the heavy wooden door of the conference room was pushed open again, and a wheelchair was slowly pushed in. The person who spoke in the wheelchair stunned the directors present. Ji Bowen. It was actually Ji Bowen who had come back from the dead. Li Zhengsheng was shocked and Ji Bowen's face instantly turned pale. The directors present couldn't believe their eyes. Director's son thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, and rubbed them hard. When he saw the familiar figure of Ji Bowen, he was so emotional that tears fell. Ji Yuqi took over the job of the caregiver, and pushed her father to the front of the conference table. Ji Bowen looked around and said sorrowfully, Everyone, I didn't die in this car accident. Both my legs were injured and I can't return to work for a while. I didn't expect that after this incident, I would discover so many people who were disloyal to me. Perhaps this is a blessing in disguise. Li Zhengsheng, Chen Tingfang, and Ji Wanhua had ulterior motives. They wanted to seize control of the Ji group during this period of my accident. I saw it clearly and I feel very sad. Among these people, there are old friends who have worked with me for many years and my family. The pain of being betrayed by friends and family is more painful than losing the company. At the end of his speech, Ji Bowen's eyes reddened. He took a deep breath and looked at Ji Wanhua with regret. Wanhua, I think I've treated you well all these years. Why did you collude with Li Zhengsheng to ruin Yuqi's reputation and steal the Ji family's assets? Ji Wanhua's eyes hid a trace of hatred. Her beautiful face was tinged with sadness. She said sadly, Big brother, how can you accuse me like this? I'm just telling you what I know. I don't think I did anything wrong. Things have come to this and you still refuse to admit it. Good, very good. Our Ji family has raised an ingrate. Ji Bowen was heartbroken and angry. He said sternly, Ji Wanhua, I'll give you one last chance. If you admit your mistakes and clarify your lies, I can pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, do you want Qin Xian to suffer for having a mother like you? Ji Wanhua's nails dug into her palms. She couldn't admit that she had ulterior motives in front of so many people. She didn't believe that Ji Bowen had evidence to prove what she had done. She lifted her chin slightly and said with a proud expression, Big brother, if you insist on misunderstanding me, I can't do anything about it. Ji Bowen nodded. Good, very good. Yuqi, your aunt still refuses to admit her mistakes. Take out the evidence and convince her. Ji Yuqi had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She wanted those people who had humiliated her in her previous life to suffer the same retribution. She took out a recording pen and pressed the play button. She deliberately used the loudspeaker to amplify the sound so that everyone in the conference room could hear it. Zhengsheng, how did your talk with Chen Tingfang go? Did she agree to work with you? Everyone could hear that this was Ji Wanhua's voice. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 935. Then Li Zhengsheng replied, We've already discussed it. Now that Lu Jianfeng has fallen from grace, she has lost her backing. She could be abandoned by Ji Bowen at any time. She should hurry up and find someone to back her up. I've already discussed it with her. On the anniversary of Ji Bowen's ex-wife's death, we'll create a car accident. It would be best if all three of them were killed. Ji Wanhua was silent for a while. Li Zhengsheng's teasing voice sounded. Why? You can't bear to part with them? After a while, Ji Wanhua said, I'm worried that a car accident could easily expose us. If the police were to target us, it would be troublesome. Don't worry, we won't expose ourselves. I've already planned it out. Since you've already arranged it, I'm relieved. By the way, Chen Tingfang is not to be underestimated. We have to guard against her. If she gives us away, we'll be in trouble. I've already prepared for this. I have something on her, so she has no choice but to listen to me, Gigai. Something on her? What do you mean? Photos of her in bed with other men. Don't be fooled by her usual virtuous appearance. In fact, she's extremely flirtatious. She often fooled around in nightclubs. All right. Stop nagging. Look at your wretched face. After that, the two flirted for a while. It was obvious that the two of them were old acquaintances. They must have already done it. Ji Wanhua's face was pale. She couldn't figure out how her conversation with Li Zhengsheng could be recorded. Li Zhengsheng was the same. He thought that he had done it secretly, but he didn't expect to be exposed on the spot. His old face alternated between red and white. It was wonderful. Hearing this recording again, Ji Yuqi still couldn't suppress the anger in her heart. It was the same in her previous life. After her father died in a car accident, Jiang Tianhao, Chen Tingfang, and the others joined forces to take over the Ji group. At that time, Uncle Sun refused and suggested that Yuqi enter the company to learn how to inherit the Ji group. However, Ji Wanhua dropped a bombshell, saying that Ji Yuqi wasn't Ji Bowen's biological daughter. As a result, Yuqi completely lost everything in the Ji family. All the Ji family's assets fell into the hands of Ji Wanhua, Chen Tingfang, and Jiang Tianhao. At that time, Jiang comforted her, saying that it didn't matter if she was Miss Ji or not, he would still love her. Love her? Haha, he really loved her. In just a short year, when she lost all her value, he didn't hesitate to push her off the cliff. Thinking back to her previous life, and then thinking back to this life, Ji Wanhua and Chen Tingfang had actually caused a car accident in order to seize the inheritance, wanting to kill the 3 members of the Ji family. If she hadn't been on guard early on, eavesdropped on Li Zhengsheng and Chen Tingfang's phone calls, and had Liang Yu and Ah Zhe secretly follow behind their car, and discover that the car was leaking oil in time, they would have been buried in a sea of fire long ago. On the day of the accident, the truck driver threw a cigarette and caused a fire. The driver, Uncle Wang, was the first to bear the brunt of the fire. His clothes were immediately set on fire. He endured the intense pain and quickly pulled over. Because he was too fast, the BMW hit the roadside railing. During the collision, Ji Bowen injured his head and fractured both his legs in order to protect his children. Fortunately, Liang Yu and Ah Zhe arrived in time before the car exploded and rescued the 4 of them. However, Uncle Wang's body was severely burned and he was still in critical condition. After the accident, Ji Yuqi purposely released fake news in order to lure out Chen Tingfang and the other big fish. She said that the Ji family's car had been destroyed and that all of them had died in the explosion, making Chen Tingfang and the others believe that they had died in the explosion. Now that the evidence was irrefutable, it was useless for Ji Wanhua and Li Zhengsheng to quibble. Ji Bowen's expression was complicated as he slowly said, "Wanhua, why did you do this? Is money really more important to you than your family?" Ji Wanhua removed all her pretense. Her gaze was ferocious and filled with hatred. "Family? You really have the guts to say that? If you and my foster father hadn't forced me back then, how could I have married that Taiwanese? Do you know how he treated me? He cheated on me every other day and kept a mistress. If it wasn't for Qin Xian, I wouldn't have tolerated it for even a day. I've had enough. I've had enough of those days of being stepped on by men. My pain comes from you and my foster father's stubbornness. Ji Bowen, I want to take everything away from you and hurt the family you love the most. I want you to have a taste of the pain I once suffered." Ji Bowen was stunned. He shook his head and sighed. "Back then, second uncle and I also asked for your opinion. You were the one who said that the man had good qualities and was someone you could entrust your life to. After so many years, you're still like this. You clearly made the choice yourself, but once you made the wrong choice, you pushed all the blame to others. Wanhua, you're no longer a child. Can't you be more mature? I'm not wrong. It's all your and my foster father's fault." Ji Wanhua suddenly lost control of her emotions and pushed something beside her to the ground. The sound of something breaking could be heard from the screen. Her face was ferocious as she roared. I'm not wrong. It's all your fault. Ji Wanhua was just a pitiful and sad woman. She clearly had the right to control her own fate, but she fell into the delusion of being persecuted. She refused to let go of herself, and in the end, she harmed others and herself. Ji Bowen sighed. Turn it off. Don't waste your breath on her. The screen on the wall suddenly turned black, and Ji Wanhua's ferocious face disappeared. After the atmosphere in the conference room returned to normal, Ji Bowen announced, Li Zhengxing is a wolf with wild ambitions. He's suspected of murder and plotting to seize the company's interests. I propose that he be removed from his position as the vice president of administration. In addition, during the period when I'm recuperating, Yuqi will take over the position of president. The directors who were persuaded by Li Zhengxing to seize power saw with their own eyes that Li Zhengxing and Ji Wanhua had exposed themselves. Naturally, they wouldn't foolishly kick up a fuss. Gigai raised his arm in agreement. After subduing those with ulterior motives, the meeting went smoothly. After it was over, Ji Yuqi pushed her father to the CEO's office to hand over the work. Ji Bowen personally guided her. He was pleasantly surprised to find that his daughter learned very quickly. He couldn't help but feel gratified. Chi-Chi, I was worried that you wouldn't be able to do these things well due to your lack of experience. I didn't expect you to be so smart and learn it so quickly. Ji Yuqi winked playfully and sweetly said, Dad, there's actually a secret that I haven't told you. What secret? Her face bloomed with a bright smile. That is, I opened my own company. Ji Bowen was shocked. Really? What company? A clothing company. The company's name is Free. Dad, doesn't it sound familiar? Free. Is it the company that set off the city's fashion trend when it was just established? Ji Bowen's voice was slightly hurried. He really didn't expect his daughter to be so capable. Right. In the past, the Ji Group had wanted to acquire Free. Father, the reason why I hid it from you for so long was because I didn't want that scoundrel Chen Tingfang to find out. You won't blame me, right? Ji Bowen was deeply moved. Chi-Chi, Dad is proud of you. I didn't expect you to grow into such a smart and capable person without me knowing. On the contrary, I was blinded by those people and couldn't see their evil intentions. If you hadn't been prepared, our family would have really been reunited with your mother in heaven. As a father, I'm really incompetent. I didn't protect you well. Ji Yuqi squatted in front of him and smiled warmly. Dad, when Ahan and I were in danger, you didn't care about your own safety and stood in front of us to block the danger for us. In our hearts, you are the best father in the world. His daughter's bright smile brightened his heart. The father and daughter looked at each other and smiled. The atmosphere was warm. Suddenly, a cell phone rang. Ji Yuqi saw that it was an incoming call and quickly answered it. Liang Yu, what's the matter? Liang Yu's flat voice came from the phone. Miss Ji, as you expected. Chen Tingfang is planning to escape. She's already on the highway. She wants to escape after doing something bad. That's too easy on her. Catch her. I want her to spend the rest of her life in prison. When that time came, Chen Tingfang and Yi Zisu would live in the same prison. Mother and daughter would become cellmates. How ironic. Okay, I won't let her escape. As soon as he finished speaking, Liang Yu's gaze caught the car in front of them. He realized that the car was actually rushing toward the cliff. He couldn't help but sigh. Is Chen Tingfang crazy? She's actually driving the car toward the cliff. Before Ji Yuqi could react, she heard Liang Yu's exclamation. She fell off the cliff. Chen Tingfang's car fell off the cliff. Ji Yuqi didn't know how to describe her feelings at this moment. Chen Tingfang must have panicked when she saw that there were pursuers behind her, causing her to make a mistake and rush down the cliff to her own death. The police thought so too, because they checked the damaged car and didn't find that it had been tampered with. Chen Tingfang was very tough. She didn't die after falling from such a high cliff. However, if she was conscious, she would feel that it was more painful than death. Her lower body was completely paralyzed, and she was in a vegetative state. She couldn't speak or think. She could only lie in a pile of tubes and rely on nutrient solution to sustain her life. The first person to visit her at the hospital was Lu Jianfeng. Although Lu Jianfeng was still immaculately dressed, he was no longer as high-spirited as before. His face was gloomy, and his brows were filled with fatigue and sorrow. He sat by Chen Tingfang's bedside, holding her hand with one hand and gently stroking her thin cheek with the other. "Xiaofang, I didn't expect that we would meet under such circumstances." His deep eyes were filled with intense emotions. In the empty ward, facing her who was unconscious, he could finally confess the love that he had suppressed in the bottom of his heart. He lowered his head and gently kissed her lips. He whispered in her ear, "Xiaofang, I love you. I've loved you since I was 12. If there's a next life, let's not be siblings anymore. Let's be husband and wife, okay?" A drop of tear slid down from the corner of his eye and wet their lips. It also chilled the heart of another woman outside the ward. Wang Minghan stood outside the ward in a daze. Through the glass window on the door, she saw the situation in the ward and suddenly felt that she was so stupid and naive. She had always thought that Lu Jianfeng loved her. Even if the media said that he and Chen Tingfang had a forbidden love, she didn't believe it. She thought that the media was deliberately smearing his reputation. Until this moment, when she saw him hug and kiss Chen Tingfang, she realized how wrong she was. From the beginning to the end, she was just Chen Tingfang's substitute. He never loved her. She couldn't even compare to Wu Shiyi. At least Wu Shiyi was his legal wife. The truth was like a heavy bomb that blew up Wang Minghan's love for Lu Jianfeng. It also buried a hidden danger in their relationship. A few years later, when Lu Jianfeng was getting worse and worse, Wang Minghan didn't hesitate to take her daughter and run away with someone else. Today's scene also played a part in it. Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang finally divorced and completely cut off all ties. Li Zhengxing was suspected of murder and was arrested. Ji Wanhua couldn't escape from prison. The Ji family, which was swaying in the wind and waves, finally welcomed a sunny day after the rain. Half a year later, young men and women in bachelor's clothes gathered in front of the magnificent library building. They threw their bachelor's hats up in cheers and photographers quickly took pictures of their exciting youth. Among the cheering students, there was a curly-haired woman. She playfully hugged another woman with a cold face and quickly scratched her waist a few times when she wasn't paying attention. Her bell-like laughter echoed in the air. "Yushi, everyone is so happy today. Don't put on a cold face anymore. Hurry up, give sister a smile." Lin Yushi was the most ticklish. She laughed loudly when she was scratched, and tears almost came out of her eyes. She said intermittently, "Yuchi, stop scratching. Be careful, or I'll complain to your family Shenjia that there's a junior who's a year younger than you who's pursuing you." "Aha, complain? How dare you threaten me? See how I'll deal with you." "Ayaya, stop it. I don't dare. Miss G, Mrs. Shen, I beg you, let me go. Do you know you're wrong? Next time you make fun of me and Shenjia, I'll scratch you again. Stop scratching. Look, a hot air balloon." Hey, Miss Lin, your excuse is very idiotic. Where did that, a hot air balloon come from?" Jiyuchi looked up and really saw a huge hot air balloon flying in the air. That wasn't the main point. The main point was that there were big red words written on the hot air balloon. "Wife, marry me." A girl next to her shouted excitedly, "Oh my god, it's actually a hot air balloon proposal. It's so romantic. If my boyfriend proposed to me in this way, I'll definitely marry him." The surrounding people were in an uproar, especially the girls. Almost all of them stared at the hot air balloon with sparkling eyes. They wanted to see who the man standing in the hot air balloon was, and which girl was so lucky. The only ones who remained calm were probably Lin Yushi and Ji Yuchi. Lin Yushi said expressionlessly, "Wow, I really envy the female lead. She must be very happy to be proposed to by a man in such a romantic way." Ji Yuchi's mouth twitched. She said in a disdainful tone, "Please don't use such a cold tone to say something that should be said with an aria." Lin Yushi's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule. "Say, the male lead in the hot air balloon can't be your family's Shenjia, right?" Beauty novel, Xingwu 799. Chapter 936. Jiyuchi made a spare me expression. "Impossible. Shinja would never do such a high-profile thing. Shinja. Hey, I already said that it can't be him. Lin Yushi couldn't help but roll her eyes and turn her face away. Look over there, it's Shinja. Ji Yuchi looked in the direction she was pointing and saw the hot air balloon slowly descending. The tall figure standing in the cabin became clearer and clearer. She slowly looked up and saw the familiar face. She couldn't help but exclaim, "It's really Shinja." "That's right, I told you it was your Shinja." Lin Yushi rested her chin on her right hand, and a smile appeared in her cold eyes. She nodded repeatedly and said, "Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect young Master Shin to have such a romantic side. Hey, you've met such a perfect man. Hurry up and marry him." Ji Yuchi's mood was extremely complicated. She was very excited, very emotional, but also felt awkward as if someone was watching a good show. Shinja, this guy, she didn't expect him to do such a thing. Sob sob, she was so touched. What should she do? The man who had already left a deep imprint in her heart came out of the hot air balloon, holding a large bouquet of delicate roses in his hands. Amidst the screams of the girls, he walked steadily and confidently to Ji Yuchi step by step, looking straight ahead. His handsome face was dyed with a thin layer of gold by the sunlight. The corners of his sexy and charming lips were slightly raised and his eyes were as deep as the sea were filled with affection. He knelt down on one knee under her incredulous gaze. She was stunned. She knew that Shinja was a proud person. In front of outsiders, he had always been domineering and arrogant. He disdained to do such things to please the crowd. But now, he knelt down on one knee and proposed to her in front of everyone's eyes. She was so touched that she was in a complete mess. She covered her mouth with both hands and tears kept welling up in her eyes. He opened the red velvet ring box and a beautiful diamond ring sparkled in the box. He looked into her eyes seriously and said in an extremely sincere tone, "Chi-Chi, marry me." There were no fancy words. His love, just like his person, was as deep as the sea, without any complaints or regrets. Ji Yuchi smiled with tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to take care of my husband and children. I want to have my own career," he replied. "If you want to be a strong woman, I'll be the man behind you." Her tears fell even more fiercely. "I want to wait a few more years before having children." "All right. Spending a few more years with just the two of us is exactly what I want." She suddenly lowered her body and knelt on one knee in front of him. The two of them looked at each other at eye level. She smiled and looked at him. "Sometimes I don't do well and I might make you angry. If you are angry, you can't ignore me. You must tell me and let me know what I did wrong. I will learn to do better." His smile deepened. "All right." She held his hand and said softly, "I might not be as beautiful as other women. I'm not as gentle as other women. I'm also very narrow-minded. I want you to only love me in your life. I have many flaws. Are you willing to marry someone like me?" He didn't answer but used his actions to tell her the answer. He gently put the ring on her finger and asked with a smile, "Mrs. Shin, can I kiss you now?" She nodded shyly. Thus, under the sunny blue sky, amidst the screams, he hugged her tightly and slowly kissed her lips. Shinja couldn't wait to rush into the Civil Affairs Bureau with Ji Yuchi. He flung out 2 household registers and received the marriage certificate. The staff of the Civil Affairs Bureau sighed. The bride was still wearing a bachelor's gown, but she got married as soon as she graduated. The man she married was also tall, rich, and handsome. Sigh, this was a winner in life. In the lavender manor of Provence, the sun shone on the ancient stone road. The exquisite fountain tinkled, and tall sycamore trees stood on both sides of the road. People dressed up to the nines welcomed the breeze, and were intoxicated in the dreamy purple charm of the lavender. A grand wedding was being held here. In the bride's lounge, the internationally renowned makeup artist was doing the final makeup for Ji Yuchi. She carefully put the veil on Ji Yuchi's head and looked at it carefully. When every detail was perfect, she exclaimed excitedly, "It's really perfect. Ji Yuchi, you're going to be the most beautiful bride." "Thank you very much, Ada." "You're welcome, my dear. The wedding will start in 10 minutes. I have to go to the washroom." Ada shrugged exaggeratedly. Ji Yuchi couldn't help but smile. "Go quickly. I won't move. I'll definitely protect the fruits of your labor." After Ada left, the door of the lounge was pushed open. Ji-Yuchi thought it was the bridesmaid, Lin Yushi. She turned her head and smiled. What's going on outside? It's you. The smile on her face disappeared. She looked coldly at the man who was getting closer and closer to her, Shinyu. Shinyu was wearing a black suit, which made his tall and straight figure look even taller. He walked with his long legs and stopped in front of her in a few steps. On his handsome and arrogant face, the sexy and cold corners of his lips were slightly curled into a faint smile. It was as if he was meeting an old friend. Of course, one had to ignore the gun in his right hand. The black muzzle of the gun was aimed at Ji-Yuchi's heart. He raised his eyebrows, like a devil revealing his fangs. Come with me, my dear sister-in-law. Ji-Yuchi spread her arms and spread her hands. Please look at my outfit. Do you think my boss will agree if I go with you now? Shinyu's smile didn't change. He raised the gun. Do you need me to remind you of your current situation? Whether you're willing or not, you have to go with me. I say, second young Master Shin, I'm really worried about your IQ. There are people everywhere outside. I'm still wearing a wedding dress. I'm simply a moving human target. Do you really think you can escape from here with me? Ji-Yuchi spared no effort to talk nonsense with him, trying to stall for time. Stop talking nonsense. Do as I say. Shinyu suddenly withdrew his smile. His eyes became fierce. He strode forward and pressed the muzzle of the gun against her neck. One hand clamped on her waist, and he forcefully dragged her to the door. Ji-Yuchi was a little regretful. If she knew that the wedding day would not be peaceful, she would have hidden a dagger on her. Now, she was being held hostage by Shinyu. She could only follow him with Gigai. Shinyu, are you holding me hostage to threaten Shinja? Have you ever thought about the serious consequences of doing so? Even though she was being held hostage by him, her mind was very clear. She tried to persuade him to give up in another way. I've now been taken away by Shinja. What bad consequences are you worried about? Since Shinja treasures you so much, I'll let you die in front of him. Tell me, will he go crazy with pain? Shinyu pressed the muzzle of the gun against her throat. His fierce eyes were like a beast. She was not afraid. Instead, she laughed. You're a smart person. You won't do such a stupid thing. If I guessed right, you've already arranged everything. You'll quietly take me away, and then threaten Shinja to hand over the Shin group to you. Am I right? She delayed for at least 3 minutes. No one came. There was only one possibility. Shinyu had controlled the situation outside. Shinyu raised his eyebrows. You're really smart. I'm already considering whether to take you as my woman. While speaking, his movements were not slow at all. He took her to a secluded safety passage. In the empty underground corridor, there was not a single shadow. The footsteps of the two people were particularly clear. A black Land Rover was parked in the underground garage. Shinyu took her to the Land Rover. Click, click, click. Another person's footsteps suddenly sounded in the quiet garage. The man's handsome and proud body, facing the weak light, was set off by him. He was wearing a white suit, which complemented Ji-Yuchi's white wedding dress. His handsome face was expressionless. His cold gaze slid past Shinyu, and finally landed on Ji-Yuchi, who was in his arms. Where do you plan to take my wife? The cold voice was like a sharp sword piercing through the air, cold and silent. Shinyu leaned the muzzle of the gun against Ji-Yuchi's neck and said coldly, I didn't expect you to come so quickly. Shinja took 2 steps closer. His gaze was indifferent, without any emotion. Let go of Chi-Chi. I'll give you whatever you want. Shinyu raised his chin and laughed mockingly. Ha, you're really generous. I want the Shun group back in my hands. No problem. Shinja did not hesitate. Shinyu's eyes became fanatical. He said loudly, I also want all of the Shun family's property. I'll give it all to you. It was an unusually calm sentence, as if he was talking about today's weather. Since you're so straightforward, then sign the share transfer agreement. Shinyu held the gun in one hand, and quickly took out a document from his bosom, and threw it at Shinja's feet. Shinja glanced at Ji-Yuchi. His deep eyes hid a touch of relief, as if comforting her, telling her not to worry. Ji-Yuchi's lips curved. In fact, the moment he appeared safely, She did not have the slightest bit of worry in her heart. As long as he was fine, it was fine. The moment Shunja bent down to pick up the document, Xinyu focused most of his attention on him, in case he suddenly played tricks. Shunja did not even look at the document. He directly took out a gold pen from his pocket and signed his name. Xinyu grabbed Jiyuchi tightly and said to Shunja, "Throw the document over and step back 5 meters." Shunja listened to him and threw the document about a meter away from him. Then he stepped back a few steps. "I've done as you said. Now please let go of my wife." Xinyu's lips curved into a strange arc. "What's the hurry? After I confirm that the signature is correct, I'll naturally let her go." He tightened his arms in a show of force. Jiyuchi immediately pressed against his chest. She frowned in disgust. Shinja's pupils suddenly tightened. There was a strong hostility hidden in his deep dark eyes. He slowly clenched his fists, but in the end he did not move. Xinyu sneered, as if laughing at his powerlessness. After a short laugh he lazily called out, 13, bring me the contract." As soon as his voice fell, a man in a black shirt and black pants walked out from an unknown corner. He carried a submachine gun on his shoulder, wore sunglasses on the bridge of his nose, and had an earphone in his ear. When he approached Xinyu and the other two, his hawk-like sharp eyes quickly scanned the surroundings, maintaining a high level of vigilance. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 937. Very good. The person hiding in the dark had finally come out. The reason why Shunja did not make a move was because Aze had captured a few of the other party's people. From their mouths, he found out that Xinyu had the top assassin, 13, by his side. Before confirming 13's hiding place, he could not act rashly. Otherwise, it would put Yuchi in danger. Just as 13 bent down to pick up the contract, there was a sudden change. 2 bullets were fired at Xinyu and 13 from behind. When Xinyu sensed that something was wrong, before he could pull the trigger, Shinja had already slit his wrist with a dagger from his waist. A figure flashed in front of her eyes. The movement was so fast that it was difficult to see clearly with the naked eye. Jiyuchi was only stunned for a second before her body was already in Shinja's arms. In front of her eyes, blood bloomed like a flower. Xinyu did not give up and slowly fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. "Chichi, how are you? Are you hurt?" Shinja's hands firmly held her shoulders, an anxious expression appearing on his handsome face. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Although she said that she was fine, when she recalled that the dagger had just brushed past her ear, and even felt the sharp blade, her body instinctively broke out in cold sweat. His palm moved to her waist and hugged her tightly. His deep eyes reflected her charming figure. The tight corners of his lips slowly relaxed and curved into a warm smile. "Your wedding dress was ruined. Fortunately, I asked the designer to design a few more sets." His broad chest gave her an endless sense of security. She held his hand tightly and laughed softly. "The guests outside must be waiting anxiously. It's okay, we are the main characters today. Let's go. I'll accompany you to the dressing room and change your clothes." He hugged her. From beginning to end, he did not look at Xinyu, who was lying on the ground. Jiyuchi was a little worried. She turned back and looked at Xinyu, whose wrist was still bleeding. "What about him? That shot just now, it won't kill him, right? That's just an anesthetic, making him unconscious. Today is our big day, it's not good to kill. If it weren't for this, Xinyu would very likely migrate to Heavenly Kingdom." As soon as Shinja's voice fell, footsteps suddenly sounded in the quiet garage. A man and a woman slowly walked over. Walking on the right was a tall and beautiful woman wearing a black spaghetti strap dress. She flipped an exquisite pistol in her hand. Walking alongside her was the expressionless Aze. That beautiful woman raised her eyebrows and smiled. Her clear voice was like the babbling of a stream. "Boss madam, the two of you should hurry up and change your clothes. Leave this to me and Aze." It turned out that the people who were hiding in the dark and shooting at Xinyu and 13 were Aze and his elder sister, Lan Fei'er. Jiyuchi smiled and nodded. "Thank you, Sister Fei'er Aze." When she left the garage with Shunja and hurried to the dressing room, Jiyuchi insincerely expressed sympathy to Xinyu and Shunja in her heart. They fell into the hands of Lan Fei. And she was afraid that it was worse than death. Lan Fei, had never been soft-hearted towards her enemies. They would definitely be treated as lab rats again. Facts proved that Ji Yuqi's guess was correct. When Shen Yu woke up, he found that he had been thrown to a deserted island, and his bodyguard, 13, was lying unconscious beside him. When he woke 13 up, he suddenly found that something was wrong. He seemed to suddenly feel shy when facing 13. Shy your sister, he was not a woman. What was with that kind of heart that was beating like a teenage girl? Damn, what was going on? He was a straight man. And 13 also had the same confusion. Why did he feel that the more he looked at second young Master Shen, the more he felt that he was cute? Slam the table. Could a man be described as cute? Moreover, why did he have a desire to spend the rest of his life with second young Master Shen? The two people who had been transformed by Lan Fei, with drugs, were destined to love each other on this island. God would bless them. The sun was charming, the castle was enchanting, and in the fragrance of lavender, the grand wedding began. The wedding dress that was custom-made by a world-renowned designer revealed Ji Yuqi's graceful figure. With a smile on her face, under the lead of Ji Bowen, she walked step by step towards Shenjia, who was standing at the other end of the red carpet. He was wearing a white suit and looked handsome. His elegant face had an elegant smile as he stared intently at the woman approaching him. Her hand fell into his palm. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. The whole world seemed to have stopped, and they only had each other in their eyes. In the solemn sound of the vows, they became husband and wife. In the midst of the crowd's cheers and blessings, they hugged and kissed each other. The familiar soft touch bloomed between their lips and teeth, and they smelled the taste of happiness. When the wedding banquet was about to end, Ji Yuqi saw Shen Jianhao's figure. She did not expect him to come. A hint of surprise flashed through her eyes, and she smiled and nodded at him. Shenjia's expression was indifferent. He nodded politely, as if he was talking to a stranger. Shen Jianhao's expression did not look too good. He lowered his voice and said, "Where did you go? What did you do to him?" Ji Yuqi tightened her grip on Shenjia's hand. She thought that Shen Jianhao had come to give them his blessings. It seemed that she had thought too much. Her heart ached as she stroked the back of his hand. He held her hand back and replied in a cold voice, "He wanted to kidnap my wife, so I taught him a lesson. As for where he went now, how would I know? I'm not his nanny. I still have to entertain the guests." "Excuse me." Shenjia did not care about Shen Jianhao's ashen face. He held Ji Yuqi's hand and left. He had long been disappointed with that nominal father of his. After experiencing the scene just now, he did not take it to heart. Instead, Ji Yuqi felt sorry for him. While no one was paying attention, she stood on her tiptoes and quickly kissed his cheek. She whispered, "Aja, you still have me. Chi-Chi, being able to marry you is the happiest thing in my life." Fortunately, she was still here. She had always been here. The September sun was as warm as a dream. The newlyweds kissing in the ancient manner were the envy of many single guests. 3 years later, on a private island in Hawaii, white sand rippled. The blue sky and the blue sea were beautiful. Under the setting sun, the warm afterglow sprinkled on the sea. It was golden and dazzling, as if it was covered with a layer of gold. Ji Yuqi lay comfortably on a deck chair under a huge parasol, enjoying a leisurely time. It was her and Shenjia's 3rd wedding anniversary. The two of them had left the company and brought their children to this small island for a vacation. She took a sip of the watermelon juice on the table and looked at the beautiful scenery by the sea. Shenjia walked over with a baby in each of his arms. He leaned over and kissed her cheek. He smiled gently and said, "My dear wife, it's time for dinner." The 2 babies in his arms were both pink and tender. They were very cute. One of them was relatively lively and kept grinning in his arms. Especially when he saw Ji Yuqi, he smiled even more happily. He even stretched out his chubby arms and babbled, as if he wanted her to hug him. The other baby, Xiaobao, was relatively silent. His pair of dark eyes stared at a certain place without blinking. His small face was always expressionless. Ji Yuqi took her daughter who was babbling and pinched her son's cheek. She frowned in distress. "Hubby, our son must be like you. He's still so young and he's already acting like an old man. What if he becomes a moving iceberg in the future and can't get a wife? Shunja raised his chin with a proud expression. Who said my son can't get a wife? He has inherited all the good points of the two of us. He will definitely become the target of girls. However, my son must learn from his daddy. He must be loyal to one woman, and can only love one woman. Jiyuchi found it funny. Are you praising yourself or educating your son? Young Master Shin said shamelessly both. Unexpectedly, her son, who was just 6 months old, seemed to despise his shamelessness and rolled his eyes. Jiyuchi was so shocked that she almost couldn't finish her sentence. Ho hubby, can the baby understand what we're saying? Shunja kissed the baby's cheek hard. Baby is indeed my son. You're so smart. Good son, let's hear you call me daddy. The baby was stared at by the two of them. He didn't cry or make a fuss. His little face was still serious as he spat out a word. Daddy. Jiyuchi was so happy that she was about to cry. She kissed her son fiercely and rubbed his soft hair. She said excitedly, Baby can speak. Baby, hurry up and call me mommy. The baby's black eyes stared at her without blinking, as if it was thinking about how to pronounce the two complicated syllables mommy. Jiyuchi's daughter, who was in her arms, was indignant that both her daddy and mommy had turned their attention to her older brother. She waved her little fists and meowed. Meow meow? This girl actually wanted to call her mommy, right? Jiyuchi was shocked. She finally burst into tears. Our precious daughter can speak too. I'm so happy. I want to quickly tell Daddy and Ahan. Only when one became a parent would one understand the pride of being a parent. They would never forget the first words their children said. Shinja was also deeply touched. He kissed her cheek and said gently, Let's hurry back to the room and tell them the good news. Daddy. Meow meow. Two childish voices sounded at the same time. It was as if they were comforting them who were crying tears of joy. The sun set in the west, leaving the happy shadows of the family of four on the beach. Beauty novel Xingwu 799. Chapter 938. In the ward. The woman on the hospital bed looked pale. Even though she was unconscious, her delicate brows were tightly knitted together, as if she was in pain. Shinja sat beside her, and placed his broad palm on her cold forehead. He looked up at the attending doctor. How is she? Not too good. She needs surgery quickly. Otherwise, her eyes will never recover. The doctor looked troubled. Now she's still waiting for the cornea. Shinja's slender fingers gently smoothed her furrowed brows. His movements were extremely gentle, but the words that came out of his mouth were without any warmth. When will it be? I don't know. Maybe a day or two, maybe a week or two, or maybe. No matter how long it took, Jiyuchi couldn't wait any longer. She had to have the surgery within 24 hours. Shinja retracted his gaze and looked down at the woman beside him. She was lying there quietly without any signs of life. How painful must it have been for her eyes to be splashed with sulfuric acid. She had fainted from the pain. His deep gaze lingered on her body as he said in a steady voice, Use mine. The doctor was stunned. What? He repeated clearly. Use my eyes. As he spoke, his gaze was still lingering on Jiyuchi. He was so serious and sincere, as if he wanted to carve her appearance into his mind. The doctor was shocked and said agitatedly, No, this is against morality and ethics. Mr. Shin, if you donate your cornea, your eyes will not be able to see. I know. Shinja raised his head. His expression was extremely calm. I don't care. I just want her to be able to see. As long as she could see, as long as she was safe, that was enough. Mr. Shin, please reconsider. This is not a joke. Shinja's gaze was as calm as the deep sea. Prepare for the surgery. Also, please keep this a secret and don't tell her where the cornea came from. That afternoon, the doctor performed a cornea transplant on Jiyuchi. The surgery was very successful. Jiyuchi was pushed back to the ward, and Shinja was brought back to the villa by Aze to live a simple life. He didn't visit Yuchi again because he didn't want her to find out that he was blind. However, he had always asked Aze to hide in the dark and secretly record every bit of her. Even if he couldn't see her figure, He could still hear her voice and know how she was doing every day. He knew that her relationship with Jiang Tianhao was getting deeper and deeper. He knew that she was getting better day by day. He knew that her stitches were removed and she could see again. The moment she saw the blue sky again, she called him excitedly. Shenjia, my eyes have recovered, I can see. Shenjia, have you been busy recently? You haven't come to see me for a long time. Shenjia sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with his phone in his hand. A faint smile appeared on his lips as he asked in a warm voice, have you recovered your vision? That's great. Congratulations. I'm currently on a business trip abroad, so I can't visit you for the time being. The sunlight enveloped his body and plated a faint layer of gold on his jade-like handsome face. His unfocused eyes stared blankly at the scenery outside the window. Even if he couldn't see anything, Yuqi's brilliant smile still appeared in front of his eyes. Shenjia, I'm getting married next Sunday. You'll be there, won't you? Shenjia's voice carried a hint of laughter in her voice. The originally warm sunlight suddenly lost its warmth. He shivered from the cold and the smile on his face froze. After a long time which felt like a century, he found his voice. Okay, I'll attend. I'm very happy that you can come. Shenjia, you're on a business trip abroad. Take care of your health. She chattered endlessly by his ear, reminding him of many things. He listened attentively to her every word, and slowly became intoxicated by her gentle voice. He suddenly had an illusion that she was actually sitting by his side, forever by his side, and would never leave. Yuqi, what? His cold lips parted slightly. In the end he chuckled softly. Nothing. You'll be the most beautiful bride. I love you. Those 3 words, perhaps he would never be able to say them out loud. Since he couldn't give her happiness anymore, he would let those words drift away with the wind. He wouldn't bring her any trouble and let her be a beautiful bride in peace. Yuqi was very happy. Ever since her reputation was ruined, she was so happy. The man she loved the most had finally proposed to her. She couldn't wait to tell the whole world about her happiness. Every day, she would wake up happily and happily prepare for her wedding. She would customize her gown, take wedding photos, write invitations to invite guests, book banquets. She and Jiang Tianhao would personally participate in every single one of these, enjoying the joy and happiness of a bride who was about to be married. The day before the wedding, she tossed and turned in bed. Her mind was filled with the wedding the next day and her plans for the future. She was so excited that she couldn't sleep. Her phone suddenly rang. It was Aze's voice. Miss G, I'm outside the G residence. I want to see you. She glanced at the time. It was already past 9 o'clock. That was strange. Why was Aze looking for her so late at night? There was a car parked by the road outside the pitch-black courtyard. Yuqi knocked on the car window and the door opened. She sat in the front passenger seat and asked curiously, Aze, why are you looking for me so late at night? Aze looked at her deeply. His dark eyes were deep and gloomy, as if he was hiding a lot of things on his mind. His thin lips were tightly pursed, and there was an indescribable aura around him that made people feel uncomfortable. She didn't understand and called out again. Aze? Did something happen? Aze thought of Shenjia's words and finally suppressed his emotions. He looked away stiffly and took out a box from his arms. He said expressionlessly, Young master has something to do and can't attend the wedding tomorrow. This is his wedding gift to you. As long as Yuqi asked, Shenjia would never refuse. Since he said that he couldn't leave because he had something on, something big must have happened. Yuqi was a little worried and asked, What happened? Did something happen at the company? Aze was silent for a long time. Young master was on a business trip overseas and got into a car accident. He's still recuperating overseas. Yuqi was shocked and asked nervously, Car accident? How did that happen? Is he okay? Aze's gaze was complicated and his voice was low. His head injury caused him to lose his sight. It's possible that he won't be able to recover. Losing his sight. How could this happen? She had lost her sight before and knew the pain of not being able to see anything. She didn't dare to imagine that Shenjia, who was blessed by the heavens, couldn't see anything and could only live in darkness. He must be in pain. She was very sad. Her nose was sour and her tears fell uncontrollably. "This is for you." Aze stuffed the box into her hands and said in a low voice, "Young master said that he's fine now. You should be a happy bride and don't be sad for him." Shinja didn't need sympathy now. He was so proud and definitely didn't want her to see his weakness. She quickly wiped away her tears and tried to smile. "Aze, thank you. Please tell Shinja that I'm very lucky to have him as a friend. Let him rest well overseas, and I'm looking forward to his return." Back in the room, she opened the box and saw a beautiful aquamarine necklace. The pure aquamarine was like the enchanting sea. Under the light, it reflected a bright brilliance and was so beautiful that she couldn't look away. She could tell that it was a very expensive necklace. However, no matter how expensive it was, it couldn't be compared to his feelings. In the end, she put on the necklace and walked on the red carpet with this heavy heart. She walked towards her future husband, Jiang Tianhao. "Mr. Jiang Tianhao, do you take Miss Ji Yuqi as your wife? No matter if she's sick or healthy, rich or poor, you will always be loyal to her until you leave this world?" "I do." "Miss Ji Yuqi, do you take Mr. Jiang Tianhao as your wife? No matter if he's sick or healthy, rich or poor, you will always be loyal to him until you leave this world?" "I do." "I declare you husband and wife. No one can separate you." "The groom, please lift the bride's veil and use a kiss to witness your vows." The newlyweds looked at each other affectionately. In the cheers of the guests, the groom bent down and kissed the bride's beautiful face. Shinja sat in the most inconspicuous corner. Listening to Ji Yuqi's vows and the cheers from the people around him, his expression was very calm. His lips even curved into a warm arc. His once deep and charming eyes were now only left with a vacant look. Even if he couldn't see anything, he still wanted to personally witness her happiness and hear her laughter. "Whether you know it or not, I've always wanted to accompany you and protect you. Even if you don't love me. Even if you're married to someone else today." When Ji Yuqi was leaving the church surrounded by friends and relatives, she inadvertently turned back and saw Shinja sitting in the corner. His lifeless eyes were looking into the distance. She was surprised at first, then suddenly felt very uncomfortable. She wanted to go over and talk to him, but Jiang Tianhao suddenly carried her up. The surrounding guests cheered. She was carried by Jiang Tianhao and walked further and further away, until Shinja's figure was buried in the crowd. When they met again, she was covered in blood and curled up in the corner, crying in fear. He held her in his arms and comforted her gently. "Chi-Chi, don't be afraid. I'm here." She trembled all over and cried incoherently. "I didn't want to kill him. It was him. He bullied me. What should I do? I killed someone. Jin Mingyao wanted to rape her. When she resisted, she accidentally stabbed him in the chest with a knife. She really didn't do it on purpose. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Nothing will happen." He pressed her head against his chest. His slender fingers stroked her sticky hair that was wet with blood. His low and gentle voice had a magical soothing power. He said, "Chi-Chi, you just had a dream. Sleep for a while and wake up. Everything will be fine." She believed his words and felt that it was just a dream. She leaned in his arms and fell into a deep sleep with extreme fatigue after the fear. When she woke up, she was in Shinja's villa. She had already changed into clean pajamas. Her hair and body did not have the unpleasant smell of blood, and there was a faint fragrance. She did not see Shinja. She jumped off the bed barefoot and ran downstairs, looking for him everywhere. Aze said, "Young master went abroad for a business trip." Shinja, that fool. Even now, he still wanted to deceive her and let her live in a world without fear. The moment she saw the news of Shinja going to jail, Ji Yuqi's tears fell like rain. She shook her head. Shinja didn't kill anyone. Why did he turn himself in? Why did he take the blame for me? I want to go to the police station. I want to turn myself in. I want them to release him. She was the murderer, not Shinja. She couldn't let him go to jail. Add. Hongcha 866. Chapter 939. She ran out of the villa barefooted like a madwoman, not caring that she was still wearing her pajamas. Aze quickly stopped her and shouted, Are you crazy? Young master sacrificed himself to protect you. Don't let him down. Get out of my way. I can't let him go to jail for me. She screamed and kicked until she finally broke free from Aze's hold. Like a mental patient, she rushed into the police station in a mess. Her eyes were bloodshot as she screamed, "I'm the murderer." But the police thought that she was mentally ill and didn't believe her at all. Shinja created perfect evidence to prove that he was the real murderer of Jin Mingyao. The CEO of the Shin Group became a prisoner. The whole of Ing City was in an uproar, and the Shin Group's share price plummeted. Shin Jianhao hated Shinja to the core and cut off all ties with Shinja in front of the media. He even added insult to injury by saying that Shinja had been autistic since young, and that his mental state wasn't very good. Shinja, who was favored by the heavens, became a mental patient and a murderer overnight. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. "Shinja, why did you do this? You know that I'm the murderer. Why did you take the blame for me?" he said. "Because I love you." In the visitation room, Jiyuchi's tears rolled down her cheeks through the glass. Shinja couldn't see her tears, but he could hear her crying. Her cries were transmitted to his ears through the microphone. It was like a sharp knife cutting into his heart. His heart ached as he reached out his hand to wipe her tears, but his hand was blocked by the thick glass. Seeing his extended right hand and lifeless eyes, her tears fell even more fiercely. Like a broken string of pearls, she couldn't stop crying. She cried until she almost fainted. Her soft sobs whipped his heart. His heart ached as he comforted her. "Chi-Chi, don't cry." How could she not cry? She had almost cried all the tears in her life. She said sadly, "Why are you so silly? I can't even return your love. Why are you so silly?" He knew that he wouldn't get anything in return, but he still gave so foolishly. He was too silly. Shinja only smiled and didn't answer. It was only when the prison guard reminded him that the time was almost up that he said his last sentence. "Chi-Chi, if you don't love Jiang Tianhao anymore, can you love me?" She broke down and cried. She didn't deserve it. She didn't deserve his love. 7 years later, the warm sun dispersed the mist and the lush pines and cypresses in the cemetery stood tall and straight. A man in a black suit stood in front of a tombstone, his slender fingers caressing the tombstone. His eyes were slightly lowered and there was a thin layer of mist on his long eyelashes. His thin lips curved and his voice was gentle and soft. "Chi-Chi, long time no see." He had waited for a long time, but instead of receiving her love, what he received was the news of her falling off a cliff and passing away. At that moment, he felt as if a part of his heart had been emptied, and he was no different from a walking corpse. She smiled shyly at the photo on the tombstone, just like when they first met. His fingers caressed her cheek longingly and he whispered in her ear, "Chi-Chi, just you wait. I will avenge you." During the years in prison, he had already asked Daze to investigate the truth of the matter. He knew that Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou had colluded to kill Yuqi. This time, he came back to collect the debt on behalf of Yuqi. A month after Yuqi's death, Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zissou couldn't wait to get their marriage certificate. Even so, Jiang Tianhao didn't dare to admit that Chen was his and Yi Zissou's illegitimate child. In front of the public, he had always been a good husband who deeply loved Ji Yuqi. He couldn't destroy his own image. At first, Yi Zissou expressed her understanding, but gradually, she began to feel unreconciled and wanted to restore his identity as her son. However, Jiang Tianhao firmly refused, and the couple gradually became conflicted. As a successful man, many women flocked to Jiang Tianhao, wanting to win his favor. Even if they didn't have any status, they were willing to be his mistress. At first, Jiang Tianhao knew how to refuse, but later, as his relationship with Yi Zissou deteriorated, he simply raised a mistress. Who knows which mistress he had? Paper can't wrap fire. Jiang Tianhao's affair was eventually revealed to Yi Zissou. She cried, threw a tantrum, and used all her tricks, but there was no way to save him. In the end, she threw out her trump card and threatened him. If he didn't cut ties with those vixens, she would expose Chen Er's identity. Jiang Tianhao's heart was filled with resentment. Although he agreed to stop fooling around on the surface, in reality, he just did it in a more secretive manner. One day, Yi Zissou received a package containing a thick stack of photos. They were all photos of Jiang Tianhao with different women on a boat. She completely broke down. She hated Jiang Tianhao's heartlessness. For him, she was willing to be the woman behind his back. For him, she caused Ji Yuqi's death and became a murderer. But what about him? Once he had money, he turned bad. He was one person in front of her and another behind her back, trampling on her sincerity. Since he was heartless, why should she be loyal to him? She also began to feign civility, maintaining harmony with him on the surface. In reality, she began to secretly transfer his assets, transferring his assets to another account of hers. In this world, only money could be relied on. Men to hell with them. Just as the husband and wife were fighting, the G Group suddenly changed. The companies that had previously worked with the G Group all requested to terminate their contracts. The G Group suffered a huge blow. The Shun Group suddenly jumped out and said that they wanted to acquire the G Group. Jiang Tianhao tried to turn the tide, but scandals about him suddenly broke out. It was said that he used his ex-wife, Ji Yuqi, to seize the Ji family's assets. In the end, he colluded with his mistress, Yi Zixu, and brutally murdered his wife and the child in her womb. He was despised by the world, and the board of directors expressed their dissatisfaction with him. They wanted to elect a new president. Just as he was in a terrible state, Yi Zixu took all of his savings and escaped with his son. Shenja successfully acquired the G Group and chased Jiang Tianhao and his lackeys out of the company. He returned to his empty villa alone, still dreaming that he would be able to make a comeback one day. However, 2 police officers rushed over and arrested him. It turned out that after Yi Zixu escaped with the money, she was arrested by the police. It was unknown what happened during the escape, but she kept screaming ghost, ghost, ghost. She spilled the beans like a bamboo tube, telling the police in detail how she and Jiang Tianhao killed Ji Yuqi. 7 years after Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zixu committed the crime of intentional homicide, their crimes were finally exposed and they were arrested and sent to prison. Although Shenja had acquired the G Group, he had always maintained the original structure of the G Group. He adopted the child of a side relative of the Ji family under his name and raised and taught him personally. When he grew up, he let him inherit the old G Group. He adopted 12 children in his lifetime. They were of different skin colors and came from all over the world. He groomed them into outstanding talents in various fields. He built a business empire. He was the legend of Ying City. He never married. Legend has it that he once loved a woman. Her name was Ji Yuqi. Ad. Hongcha 866 that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.